That level of cricket now, level of cricket is completely different.
I trained 5-6 hours a day most of my life.
Some days I'll be bowling like 20 overs and I'm like,
RCB doesn't win the IPL often.
itna hi karna for this specific injury.
I don't think anybody knows exactly if it helps in recovery or not.
It's a little bit of a workload issue in this
course.
country in terms of cricket mainly.
Traditionally, parents in India have not given a shit.
Regeneration depends on the joint itself.
I don't want to foam roll before. Yeah.
And warm up would be a general, I would tell them one hip mobility.
So Navnita, welcome to the Granimal Mindset podcast. For those of you that do not know, Navnita is one of the top athletic trainers in the country, one of the first athletic trainers in the country, and I know a lot of people are still a little bit hazy on the concept of athletic training, so we'll break it all down. But welcome to the show, Nav.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I've heard amazing things about you. I was telling you this as well, and I just want to talk everything about, what happens to people, why do they get injured, how to prevent it, how to treat it, all of it. And I know you are the perfect person to talk about that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, how's your day been so far?
Very good. It's my husband's birthday tomorrow. So again, we're just kind of like making sure our badminton academy, the kids have their cake and their whatnot, little juice box all done for tomorrow. And we're going to the orphanage. So trying to get that all sorted for tomorrow. So it's been pretty busy.
Yeah.
And then I just came here. So it's good.
That's awesome.
Yes.
You mentioned Badminton Academy. I think that's a good point to touch base right away. And I want to, because see, as an athletic trainer, you already have experience of training people, whether it's rehab, whether it's massage therapy. But now you have sort of a logistic of your own to handle, and it's beyond athletic training, it's beyond rehab. So how is it running your own residential academy?
So it's been 2 years and I never thought I was going to love it so much.
Yeah.
Akshit and I, like obviously everything was pictured and during COVID there was a lot of delays and we were like, okay, we're going to create this, but we didn't know that there was going to be such a big spike. In the beginning, obviously everything starts off slow and suddenly there's a big spike in terms of the people from, especially the girls wanted to come to the academy and the hostel stay and whatnot. So I guess more than treatment in the evening, I am seeing the players and then I do call my outside players also.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that, especially in the girls' hostel, they're like, Nav, ye bhi hai.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, and this is the age that they have a lot of questions also. So I'm learning also because obviously one day I also want to be a parent. So I'm like, wow, I'm learning so much. So it's beyond, it's actually a blessing in disguise. So it's preparing me for obviously the future. So, and another thing is I've never worked with the kind of like this age category. I've only worked with professional athletes, 24, 23 and above. Yeah. And now it's like 14-year-olds to like 19-year-olds. And I'm like, wow. So it's honestly been a privilege. It's been a learning curve. It is extra work. Like there are days that we're there till 10, 10:30, 11. And then wake up the next morning, go to work. But I think it's all worth it at the end.
That's crazy because you mentioned a lot of things there. And like when you said, I'm basically looking after 13, 14-year-olds. It's beyond at that point treatment. It's beyond you're basically an elder sister. You're basically part-time mother, right? A role that can be crazy, but now you're enjoying it. Yes. But I want to give everybody context. So we're talking about Nav's residential badminton academy, and why badminton. I want you to explain that as well. So give me the entire rundown of why badminton, why academy, and then I think people will have more context on this.
For sure. So I've always, since I moved to India, I've always wanted to make something in India. Yeah. I wanted to build an academy. I wanted to build some sort of institution. It was in my head. I was like, I want to make something. Yeah. So my husband is actually in India, like a former India #2 badminton player. That's awesome. And now he's more into coaching now and playing like mixed doubles here and there. And so his name is Akshit Mahajan. So our academy's name is AM Badminton Academy, which is Akshit Mahajan.
Makes sense. Adds up.
Exactly. So, and that's exactly it. We wanted to build some sort of academy. That was our dream goal. And there was two chances. We were like whether to make it in Canada or India. But we wanted to really help out athletes in India. And although I'm born and raised in Canada, I'm Canadian. I really, really generally love being in India. Yeah. I've seen the difference, the amount of work these lovely athletes go through and the struggle also. That inspires me to keep going and to work in India just to help as much. Whatever's in my hand I can do, whether it's financially, whether it's whatever I can, like beach making, send exercise every week, especially if they're dood wale athletes. So that's the reason behind our badminton academy. Like it's something that we make it so like convenient for everyone as well, and they don't have to go to South India for which has really good top-notch academies there too, but something's close.
I think South is more in terms of if you want to progress in development players. I think people prefer the South because of Gopi Chand and Padukone and all of those centers being in the South, right?
Hanji, exactly. And my husband was under Gopi Chand and Prakash Padukone for quite some years, and then he was in China also, and then I think he just wanted to bring all this wealth of knowledge in North India, and because North India was, I think, also we've done our research, it was lacking like a top-notch badminton academy.
I would say, I mean, North India in general, if you look at sporting resources, in general, lacking a lot of things. So I think when you started, it was maybe like, if I look at it, and me and my friend Akash, we have this discussion all the time because we've been raised in the system as athletes, and we feel like there is so much that is lacking and there is so much that can be improved. So as an athlete, one part of your brain is always thinking, yaar, mere paas jis din paise aaye na, I want to open my own thing and I will fucking develop players like nobody ever has, right? Because you have that resentment, you have that anger from, I did not get this, I did not get that, I didn't even get basic guidance, and you want to create big impact. But when you actually started like you have, I think you find that regional impact will also be massive because this region is what needs the most amount of help, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. And like, especially at this age category, like 13, 14-year-olds, again, they don't know what pain is.
Yeah.
Some of them like ye dekho that, and every second day, and I'm like, yeah, are we just overloading them so much on the court? I'm like talking to Akshit about it and his coaching staff, and we have a coach from Indonesia also with us.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, maybe, zyada ho raha hai, like 5-6 hours a day. Because sometimes there is a little bit of a workload issue in this country in terms of cricket mainly, where some days they'll be bowling like 20 overs and I'm like, what are you doing, right? Yeah. But then again, it's hard to find a fine line between, hello coach, like XYZ, like itna hi karna, and at the same time, don't disrespect them because they'll talk about their past, like humne to itne overs ki in the past. I'm like, I understand, but that level of cricket is completely different.
Yes.
So badminton also, like, I make sure we start a little bit of a workload management thing too. There is a little flexibility in terms of that and depending on players because we want them to not kind of like burn out also.
Yeah, I think physically, mentally, both happens.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah, so, especially people in residential academies because a lot of them are away from home, right? So one of the things, I mean, I trained 5-6 hours a day most of my life, right? But the thing was I would come back home, right? So the burnout is usually mental first and then it translates into physical. And that is especially true for people that are living in, residential academies because they don't have an outlet, they don't meet their family often, they don't have friends around them. The only friends or family is the people they live with. And it can become a kind of a, like a place that is, you feel like, this is the place I live, I can't escape this, right? Yeah. So that becomes a reason for burnout as well. And 100% agreed कि यार balance बनाना बहुत ज़रूरी है. So how do you guys ensure that besides the workload कि यार पिछले हफ्ते हमने काफी high workload रखा, इस हफ्ते कम. What else do you guys put in terms of checks and balances?
So the coaches all kind of give me a little like rundown on this player has this tournament coming up, nationals are coming up, district is coming up, jo bhi hai. So then we'll taper down the workout accordingly. Then we'll get the trainer involved, his name is Sam, and we'll also be like, okay, taper down his program as well. And someone that has a little bit of a niggle or injury, we'll prioritize that over anything. And then we might get an ortho involved as well, just to make sure if we can cross check, if we can help someone and someone superior comes in to give their, if for them to shine some light, why not? Like I'm like all in, like working as a team is better than just being like, no, ye karo. I think that's best. And sometimes there is a reason why I finally learned, because I used to step in and be like, yeah, itna mat karo, vagara. And then the coaches are like, then I finally learned to step back and be like, they actually know, they know way more than what I'm doing. And my job is just to monitor and be like, okay, itna hi karna for this specific injury, right? Like the workload for that on court this much, and just get the reviews from the coaches, and not just from the player, but from the coaches itself.
I think it's a very thin line.
Yes.
It is an extremely thin line.
Agree.
Because see, you want to breed champions.
Hanji.
And how you breed champions is by always pushing the envelope. And the tricky part there is because you're always competing and you're always chasing something that you feel like there's better people around me. I need to work harder. When you push that envelope, sometimes, a lot of the times, athletes don't realize what is too much.
Exactly.
And as an athletic trainer, ये हमारे साथ बहुत होता था. Like when I went to school in the US, when I mean college, and I was playing there, 80s would tell coaches कि यार बहुत गर्मी है, can we keep the session light? A lot of people are having like weird symptoms, they're blacking out and stuff, or they're getting cramps. Should we take it easy? We have a game in 3 days. But the coach in his head is kind of weeding out the weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to show people that you're fucking weak, you're weak.
Yeah.
And as an athletic trainer, you can see a disaster impending. But as a coach, you have to do what you have to do.
Exactly. And like, that's where I come in and be like, I have to admit that I don't know like coaching as much. So that's why I respect, we kind of sit down and be like, there's like a mutual agreement amongst all of us. And with girls, obviously there's more flexibility just with the menstrual cycle and whatnot going on with the girls' life and stuff. So then I put that into play because I think the girls are more comfortable speaking to me.
Yeah.
So then that's where I put into play. I'm like, hey guys, listen, like this needs to happen and this needs to happen. It really, really changes. But otherwise, they're very easygoing with things as well. And then we're getting a psychologist on board.
Amazing.
And as much as I think overall we wanted a yoga therapist once a week kind of thing, just because overall mobility.
Yes.
And we do have Sam, our trainer, who's doing it 2 times a week, but we want to get a little bit more involved in terms of like just being more in like present with themselves and be confident with themselves and just breathing techniques and that. Then we got them on board. So slowly we are building as well, and the workload obviously changes thereafter 100%. As well. So that's about it.
Yeah, I think बहुत सही बातें बोली आपने, दो psychologist and a yoga therapist. And I think in general it's very important for athletes to have something, I'm not going to say which is a distraction, but it's something that is helping them zone into something else than what is already on their mind. All the time I need to win this, I need to win that, I'm not doing good at this movement. And you can as an athlete you can start fixating on very minute details. यार मेरी ये चीज़ improve ही नहीं हो रही है. So I think something like that where they have either somebody to discuss it with, or even themselves, and they don't have to worry about that. They're just doing like yoga, mobility work, movement work. I think is very, very important physically, mentally.
100%. Then there are late nights for us, like right when we're about to leave at 8:39, like कोई ना कोई parent will come and sit with us, be like, मेरा बच्चा improve क्यों नहीं कर रहा? And that's not my, obviously that's more of Akshit's work. Yeah. And obviously I have to wait for him until he's done. And I just sit in the office and I'm just listening. And I'm like, sometimes I feel the parents just need to take a step back.
It's very hard. Again.
I know it's a fine line. And it's like Akshit and I have seen a lot of kids, a lot of parents now over the 2 years.
Yeah.
And we're like, you know what? And Akshit just kindly says, don't worry. Just give us some time. Just give us some time. And they're like, I want results. I want this one. And there are parents sometimes, we made a rule now that parents are not even allowed on the court now.
That's awesome.
If you want to go, you go upstairs, drink chai, where there's a window and you can see, but you're not on the court. And I think naturally that pressurizes a kid too. And
100%.
Kids have come to us quietly and they're just like, I just can't, we can't. It's like, it's such a rat race here that they're just like, every time they're thinking about is like, I want to get better, I want to be better. And, I'm not getting ripped. We're like, okay, calm down.
So on one side, you want to fucking appreciate that because...
Exactly.
Traditionally, parents in India have not given a shit about their athlete excelling at sport.
Exactly.
So on one side, you want to support that and be like, I really like that you care.
100,
right?
yes.
And I've seen this a lot. There's Bangalore, there's a U6, U8 baby leagues. You see parents on the outside going crazy. They're fighting with the ref. They're fighting with each other. They're like, go. So you like that. But at some level, what you said is correct. Like, as an outsider, you think progress is linear, right? You're like, मैंने ये अपने बच्चे को डाला, उसका बच्चा भी तो improve कर रहा है, तो मेरा बच्चा इतना improve क्यों नहीं कर रहा? Why is he not winning? There are so many factors, and that's where you as a coach or as a business owner are answerable, but at the same time you're like, trust me, I know this. This is process. I have been through it. I've made hundreds of people go through it. I cannot explain it to you. Just trust it, right? There is talent involved, there is work ethic involved, there is sometimes a learning curve involved.
Exactly.
Right? So, makes sense. I think we already delved into a very interesting conversation. So, mujhe na, as an athlete and as somebody who's always thought, because I did not get very good coaching early on, I did not. Everything I learned as an athlete, I had to kind of figure it out on my own. Right? Everything. right? Recovering from injuries, how to train, how to recover, how to improve your game IQ, kind of everything was self-studied. So you feel like when I become a coach, I'm going to do this differently, I'm going to do that differently, aisa kar dunga, waisa kar dunga. And I'm sure your husband has a little bit of that, right?
Yes.
Or a lot of that,
Yes.
right? So how is it for you watching him, transition from an athlete into a coach who still has the, I would say, the work ethic or the drive of an athlete, but now getting a little bit of maturity as a coach as well?
I think that's a very good question. I think Akshit and I spoke about this in terms of when I first met him, that time he was coaching in a community center in Sector 20. I think कुछ है community center में. हाँ, so वहाँ पे. And obviously I've seen him grow, and then finally the academy has started. And he's coached a lot all over India as well. And one thing I told him, that don't handhold.
Yeah.
Just because I've been born and raised in Canada, and there, absolutely, my parents at the age of 18, they're like, bye. They're very like, sorry, 16, they're like, go buy, like go work. And it's very different, like the environment here. So I told him one thing is like, do not handhold. Let the athletes and especially the kids slowly understand by themselves. Like, like there's a lot of other, parents are, caring for their kids a lot of fun. And I think you should be the pillar of strength to be like, do it on your own. Don't worry, just focus on that. So it's a fine line between that. But that was one thing I told Akshit, and I think he's carried forward that really well. Even in the academy, I think the general physiotherapy that people see is like every day out.
Yeah.
And me, I'm like once a week out. Here's your exercises. Record.
I love that. Yeah.
Tata, I'll see you next week, right? Yeah. If someone has a match coming up and it's very, very urgent, then I see them 2 times a week. So even at the academy, I made the same policy. I was like, I'll see you. Here's your exercise program. Record it. You have to do this. And trying to get them to do it is like, you need to. But I feel like at this age, once they, that generate the confidence by themselves, they can go for play for India, and they won't be dependent on anyone.
100%. That's very important.
And that's what I want them to do. Everyone's like, why don't you call people every day? I'm like, I'm not here to make money. Like, I don't want to be in India to make money. I could stay in Canada, have a good life there. Yeah. I want people to understand that you don't need physio, you don't need athletic training, you don't need hands-on exercise, you don't need someone on you. You can do it yourself. Unless if you already have a recurrent gym trainer, that's perfect. Then lower body ki injury, upper body karo beech mein. I understand that connection. I won't. I think you guys have a very good rapport. I don't think I should judge into that. But same thing with my academy. I made that rule even to 14-year-olds. I'm like, you're gonna do this. You can do this for 3 days. I'll see you on the 4th day. Yeah. And it's like, ma'am, you know what? I'm like, okay, karo. And then Akshit knows the importance of rehab because he had a surgery. He had an adductor surgery. Yeah. He had a slap tear. He had fractures. He knows it. So he especially was like, you won't get on the court until you do it. Yeah. And I think, having someone, like having obviously my husband and our coach just going behind that, I think that's really, really important. And just, you're looking at the longevity of the athlete. You're not, chalo, khelo, as if it's like a recreational sport, right? You're playing.
Agreed.
If you, especially the young guys are here, especially because staying in the hospital because they want to be professional.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, well, let's do it properly, that you don't burn out. And especially at this age, like when things are slowly getting stronger, you can't just go and be like, chalo, right? So
I think athletes need to empower, or as a person who's a medical professional who's training them, you have that mindset already कि यार मेरे को ना इनको hand holding ज़्यादा नहीं करनी है because I will not always be with them.
Exactly.
Right? And I think that is paramount. I have been an athlete. I have seen fellow athletes. They're absolutely clueless about basic things that they need to know. Yeah. They should know. Yeah. You should know how to warm up. You should know how to cool down. You should know what to eat to recover. You should know basic shit. You should know what happens when I sprain my ankle, right? Athletes don't know that. That puts them, and it's fine if you're playing for Manchester City if you don't know jack shit. Yes. Because you go into office 7 a.m., you're there till 5 p.m., everything is taken care of.
Yes.
Every food, every injury prevention protocol, every massage therapy routine, everything is catered to you.
Agree.
Right? Unless you're at that level, start fucking learning about your trade because you don't want to not be able to solve basic problems and then blame the system.
Exactly.
I've seen that happen too often. Right? So for me, I think that's a really good approach. And Indians, lazy. Want hand holding, demand hand holding, don't want to learn new things. Do you think that's something that you would resonate with compared to Canadian athletes?
That's a very good question. I feel like, like back home, they're more on their own. Like
Yes,
as in
100%.
like when the internships I've done, the teams that I worked with, like which I worked with the White Caps. I've worked with World Cup with the girls in 2010 also. So I've done all that, and that's obviously that level.
Canadian national
Canadian
team?
team, yes, yeah.
That's amazing.
Back in the day. So obviously at that level, you do again like you go in there. They have a set program done because they're at that stage.
Yeah.
Like they're professionals and. You know, their job is to be a professional athlete. Here, these guys are students. You know, these guys are just learning the basics of life too, and they're athletes also. So I feel like I want to teach them the worst case scenario, and I think I've started that since the first month of our academy, and they've really gone well.
That's good.
And it's a little bit what they do every day that'll really make an improvement, rather than me coming forward and saying like, "Kyun nahi kiya," right? So I think I've also kind of. Not really zoned out. I'll be like, they'll come up to me and be like, did you do it? They'll be like, no. I'm like, do it until then I'll see you. And I've been very strict with them at the academy. Like, they're like, Nav, you're really funny and jolly all the time. But there needs to be a very, very, like a strict personality from my end. Yeah. And be like, until you don't do it, I won't address you. Yeah. And I think that I've seen kids that have been in academy for the 2 years and huge improvement. They're on their own. They're really stronger and minimal complaints.
So I think they're also at an age where they can be molded, and I think you've started molding them at that age.
Yes.
Because I am genuinely saying this from my experience. I have been with athletes and they'll ask me questions and I'll try to answer it in a way where I'm like, I want you to get value.
Yeah.
And I want you to also learn it.
Hanji.
But they don't. They don't want to learn it. They just, yaar, abhi bata de kya karna hai bas.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I'm like, man, you're going to be in the same position and then I'm not going to be able to help you, and then you're going to bitch about an injury happened and it ruined your career. I don't want that to happen with you.
Exactly.
Right? But it's happening to athletes every day. So brings me to a really cool thing that I wanted to discuss with you was like, so I think about everything in an end-to-end kind of a way. I'm a business logistics guy now, right? मैं धंधे वाला बंदा हूँ, तो मैं हर चीज़ को process को end-to-end समझता हूँ. So if I break down the end-to-end process of an athlete, maybe the first level we have is, training and prevention, right? The second level we have is recovery. And the third level we have is, let's say the person gets injured. Now, how do we fix it, right? So what would your recommendations be for all of those stages for a person to be able to optimize every part of the funnel?
That I honestly, when it comes to preventative measures and warm up, right? That's catered towards after we do our MSK screening. We kind of funnel in the warm up and all that kind of stuff accordingly. And obviously looking at the muscle strength and whatnot, and be like, here you hear your weaknesses. This is going to be a little bit of your rehab. And warm up would be a general, I would tell them 1 hip mobility, 1 ankle traction or ankle mobility work, 1 T-spine mobility you need to do. Just 1.
Makes sense.
Because sometimes there's like 2-3 sessions in the academy, or even when I'm working at Shrug Life, I'm like, you need to do this before your workout or before cricket. Like it's a must.
Period,
And then 1 glute, 1 core, especially TA activation, a little bit of scalp. That's it. Because I understand when it comes to cricket, they're like, now there's a lot of dynamic warm-up that the SNC does with the team. So I don't want to overload them and take out so much time with that. So I'm like, as long as you do these 6 things, the basic, I think that's all I want from you. Prior to that, if you do a little bit of foam rolling, not just areas that you feel tight, not just like the day that I feel tight, right? It needs to be a consistent thing that you do. Which will take the whole body. If you do the whole foam rolling for at least 10 seconds, will be done in 2 minutes. Which is
so. What are your thoughts on that? So I used to do foam rolling when I was back in, because we would go to our AT room and we had everything on board, and a lot of people would just be foam rolling. And you were like, okay, let me also try this. Over the years, what I found out for my body was I would rather foam roll. I don't want to foam roll before training. I feel like you become looser. I feel like you become more relaxed, and you don't want to be relaxed going into training. Right? So, and I've read research about that as well. That, I mean, basic research will tell you if you foam roll, it'll promote blood supply. It'll, help loosen up the joints and stuff, the muscles, and improve joint mobility and stuff. What are your thoughts on that? Are you,
So, starting again within a young age group, someone that has not worked out or played at that competitive level, I kind of make sure that they do foam rolling, because I want them to understand muscle quality, muscle pliability, what knots are, what tightness is and whatnot, and then go straight into mobility. I kind of want a set standard done in the beginning. Like
makes sense.
I kind of want to give them a manual. And then for them, and once slowly after someone goes into Ranji or someone goes into IPL or whatever, I take a step back, So I tell them what to do. Like, I ask them what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Because they know their body. Like, if I go into IPL, the players are professional. Like, they played cricket for India, they played for, their lovely country. And they know what works, they know what does not work. I think I have no right to tell them, like, yahi karna hai, do this, because I don't think I can mold them, because they've done everything.
Yeah, they've been through injuries,
So,
they've been through kind of.
I think that's why a lot of athletes really, really respect, like, my work and stuff, because I tell them what needs to be done. And I think no one really asked them, right?
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, come, let me assess you. And they're like, no. I know what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're injured or have a niggle. It's just maintenance.
Yeah.
Especially at their level. Like, a lot of people will tell me, like, Nav, why do you do a lot of soft tissue? Why do you do a lot of massage? I'm like, they're a professional athlete. Like, they are working 5 to 6 hours a day almost. Like, 4 to 6 hours a day. 6 days a week, 7 days a week. They'll be bowling X amount of overs. I'm like, they need some hands-on. Their work is to be a professional athlete. They need to recover. Yeah. They need that kind of stuff either every day, every second day, every third day. And I love hands-on work. And I think that's where they want someone, like, just one person to kind of take care of everything rather than them going to 3 different people. And so that's why I really respect. I love my hands-on work. And so going back to your question, sorry. So I think that age group that is very new to sport, I can give a manual to them just because I want them to actually do it and like follow a pattern.
You also want like a standardized thing,
हाँ जी,
यार मतलब ये तो सब करो, सबका भला, इससे भला हो जाएगा, सबका नुकसान किसी का नहीं होगा. And then we can with the
then they give it take, and they will loosen up, and they will finally be like, okay, this doesn't work, and I'm like very, very easy. Then I let them kind of just go on their own.
So for prevention, you mentioned foam rolling, you mentioned a little bit of mobility, basic, something you swear by, and I think it's also थोड़ा सा तो basic है, हर athlete को hip mobility, ankle mobility करनी चाहिए,
timing, activation, all that stuff,
right? And then obviously there's some badminton specific things in there as well,
exactly.
right? Because you need more mobility in the shoulder joint and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that done, activation done, that's your way of prevention, ensuring prevention.
Yeah.
Okay. When you guys do SNC sessions or prehab sessions, as you have a bigger demographic, is it usually, how customized is it at that level, or is it yaar ye to sabke liye acha hai, like accessory muscle work is good for everybody, we should all do this, yoga is good for everybody, training basic strength, quad, hamstrings is good for everybody. Is that the approach taken? And if yes, do you feel like also another aspect of that is one is strength, one is activation, one is movement, right?
Yeah.
So do you guys make sure that is trained often during the week?
Yes. So after the MSK screening, it's catered towards like very individualized.
What is the MSK training like?
So I do a MSK screening, like full body screening of all the mobility. I check the angles of every joint of like shoulder, knee, ankle, whatnot.
So postural analysis.
All that stuff. Yeah. All that stuff for all the athletes. And uski hisab se, then I feel like if jo bhi kami hai, whatever the discrepancy is, then I go for a rehab program according to that. I'm like, this could be a potential concern in the future. Yeah. You're going to follow this pattern for X amount of weeks.
Makes sense. So you tested their mobility, you tested their strength, you tested their balance, stability, you tested maybe a little bit of movement mechanics as well, like how they land, how they change direction.
And that's when I get a coach also involved, because I think I want them to see as well.
Okay.
What they want in
and
terms
then
of
you
the demands.
Create like a 2-month, 3-month program and you're like, let's keep working on these things because it'll solve the problem in the long run.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So prevention sorted. And I want to be, I'm thinking as broad as possible, right? Not just badminton, I'm thinking all athletes. We think end-to-end funnel. Prevention, you do some basic mobility, you do, if you can get tested and understand your weaknesses and balances. I think that's very important. And according to that, you can keep adding movement training, movement mechanics training, strength training, mobility training, all of those things, right? So after that, thoughts on the next part of the funnel. So recovery, how do you...
Recovery, I make it once a week because I think it's like a little challenging in terms of 2 times a week because our academy is a little bit on the outskirts. And I give it up to the athletes too because it depends on the workload for that week. Some days it could just be raining and there'll be no cricket and they'll be like, recovery is not really needed. Yeah. So it might just be at home doing the hot, cold showers. A lot of golfers, especially those that are on European tour and Asian tour, if I always ask them, what do you have in your hotel? And they're like, nah, there's no swimming pool, there's no, depending on whatever. Just do at least a 1 minute on, 1 minute off shower. cold hot,
Okay.
cold hot shower at least 3 times, you're sorted.
So contrast shower is
Contrast shower is my go-to. It's convenient. It's right there. It will happen. Like I know for sure it's a tick box. Number 2, ice baths. Obviously, there's a lot of contraindications for like chalta hai, nahi chalta hai. But obviously, a lot of professional athletes still go to it, and I don't think I have the right to be like, don't do an ice bath because the research is saying, ice bath doesn't work. Honestly, the blood flow does get constricted and dilates right after you come out. So it's a feel-good factor.
It is 100%.
And there's and pro footballers and cricketers like it. And I'm like, you know what? If it works for you, stick with it. And as long as my rule of thumb is, you should not, like once your toes start going numb, you need to be out of there. Because then you obviously have
My toes
occasions
would
for...
always go numb. I would wear those toe things when
The
I
toe
would...
caps, yeah.
always.
Yes.
That was the only thing that would get cold. Them and my hands.
Yeah.
And, like when you were in college, like it would be a competition,
Yes.
We'd have proper tubs
Hanji.
and we would have like huge, I don't know what the fuck you call them, where you have a lot of ice stocked
Yes,
up.
yeah.
And you could just, shovel ice into big ass tumblers and just pour.
Exactly.
And we would have the temperature gauge as well. And we're like, oh, let's go below 0 today. Let's see how far we can go. And it would definitely feel better. And I mean, again, I don't think anybody knows exactly if it helps in recovery or not. There's a lot of other things that are now being associated or being given credit to for in terms of cold therapy.
Yes.
People say in the morning it helps you basically wake up your mind. It helps you, and I can understand the benefits from a cognitive level.
Yeah.
Right, from a cognitive standpoint. I read a lot of research and it would say that you want people to naturally adapt to load, especially in the early phases of the season or in pre-season, and not help them get the benefit of the ice bath. Maybe that's a more towards the end of the season thing.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's from person to person.
Yeah, exactly. And once an athlete becomes professional and he knows his body in and out, I'm just like monitoring. I'm like, my only concern is because obviously not every academy, not every area we can carry an ice tub with us, right? So we don't know the temperature control, and not every stadium has an ice bath thing, right? So in our academy, for example, we have like those like oil dumbaroo, na?
Oh, best of
Pani pao, and then the kids just stand in there, and then my rule of thumb, because they're kids, so they don't, as like the 20-year-olds kind of know, but like I just tell them rule of thumb, once your toes become numb, you're out of there.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much sillies they're gonna put in there, how much ice they're gonna put in there. It is a Sunday also, so they're doing it as we speak today. So that's why I'm like, please get out of there to avoid any chances of frostbite.
So what is the sweet spot for you? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes? My sweet spot has always been 10 to 12 minutes.
Yeah, so I keep it less than 5 because I would rather, we've always had a lot of ice. So, like, and it always comes in like 2 kilo, 3 kilo, like it comes in sillies. So usually the kids are out of there before 5. Like, or maybe it's adaptation, maybe slowly will be there, but keep it less than 5.
Yeah, makes sense. So you covered in the recovery session, you covered like contrast, you covered ice baths. What is your guidelines on sleep?
Sleep, I try to get everyone to do 7 to 8 hours at least. I encourage everyone to have some sort of an objective measure, whether it's a watch, whether it's an Oura ring, or whatever it is, an Apple Watch. Or we have some people like Nav, we just don't want to, especially the academy. And so I'm like, whatever it is, just try to make sure you're having 7 to 8 hours. We do usually at the academy, we usually have just lights out at a specific time. I think it's 10:30 now, and just completely lights out just to make sure we can do everything from our end, and the rest, whatever they do, it's obviously their responsibility. 7 to 8 hours ideally is the best recovery compared to whether it's me doing a little hands-on massage, ice bath, whatever. Sleep, nothing can beat sleep.
Nothing can beat sleep.
Sleep, especially in the test match. I was speaking to a lovely athlete who played for India, and he told me clearly, nothing recovers me as much as sleep.
I think a lot of top athletes have said that. Michael Phelps said that, again and again. And a lot of top athletes say that, ki bhai, 8-9 ghante ki sleep will do what anything else cannot do.
Exactly.
Right? But you made a really good point on actually, I would say, tracking the quality of your sleep. I think if I look at, and why I picked up the point of recovery was, I've seen a lot of athletes, and this is a unique time in that sense where a lot of athletes are playing at a top level in their late 30s in sports where it was unheard of. Right? Like Ronaldo being a great example of that, Ibra, Pepe, even Thiago Silva. And I looked at how they do it. Like I looked at a small documentary of Thiago Silva. Guy basically had a cryo chamber at his house. And like a lot of other devices around his house that were just catered to recovery. And it would make sense that when there is technology that is showing that doing certain things can improve your, recovery levels, and sleep being one of them, right? If you're tracking your sleep, I'm getting 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep.
Yeah.
For you, it is optimized. And if it is not optimized, you find it out and you can optimize it.
Exactly.
So that's a very good point. Something I also wanted to start doing for myself, because on the surface, I'll have lights out time for 7 hours, right? Lights out time.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it is actual REM sleep.
Exactly. 100%.
I don't know.
And then, so even with my athletes, obviously they tell me about this. Like, this is my general question whenever someone walks in with their injury. I was like, how many hours do you sleep and water? And they're probably just staring at me like, why are you asking about my water intake? Why are you asking about my sleep? Why are you asking about my blood reports? I'm like, it plays a huge role in your recovery, how you're healing. And it just depends, right? Like, in terms of it really, really depends on your water intake. Like, someone's like, I've only had a cup and they're cramping when I treat them. I'm like, okay, that could be one of the factors, my dear, right? So it's a huge, I look at the whole holistic picture of things. What are your stressors? And I think a lot of athletes naturally open up to me as well, even though I don't never want to be a psychologist, because I don't think I can be a good psychologist. And there's phenomenal ones in India already, but I think I can listen and be a good listener. I might not give a response.
I think that's 50% of the job.
Exactly. And my first 10-15 minutes out of my, like, for example, hour appointment is this. I'm like, tell me more about you. And they're probably just like, aren't you going to see me? I'm like, tell me about you, right? Like, especially for the new person.
Yeah. So I had like one of the top fitness, entrepreneurs in the country as a podcast guest a couple of weeks ago. His name is Yashwardhan Swami, trained by YVS.
Yes.
Very smart guy. So one of the things that I picked up from him, even though as a fucking athlete people look up to me, and I don't follow those basic things, right? Matlab, jaise pani.
Yes.
Like pani peena. So if people are listening right now, one thing I want to make very clear, one thing Nav said, and a couple of things YVS said is, simple things that can really optimize quality of, training, quality of life, and quality of recovery. Sleep, water intake, and one, you said blood test, right?
Yes.
So YVS told me, he said, one of the best things you can do for yourself, simple things, really, really helpful. Get tested. Actually understand what your vitamin C, vitamin B12, vitamin D levels are like, and just supplement that.
Yes.
You will see a huge difference.
100%.
Right? So that increasing, and because, the same thing was being used for YVS, he had like one bottle, just water.
Yeah.
One bottle, just coffee. One bottle, just electrolyte. And one bottle with other things in there.
Yeah.
Right? 4 bottles he put out. And I was looking at his like, "Bhai, mujhe bhi kuch la do, pani puri ke peene ka mera man kar raha hai." So from then, because I don't drink any, I use very poorly hydrated all the time, right? Now I started having like something that is a water, like this is like basically water and herbs, right? Something that is always hydrating me, because I feel like it does make a difference.
100%.
Right?
100%. Like, even when I first came to India, I never really knew what like Ayurveda is, like none of that stuff. And I never knew haldi was a big deal. And I was like, I never, like, back home, we probably barely had like dal sabji, right? So coming here in my in-laws' house, it's always dal sabji kuch to banti hai, which is such a good thing. And then haldi, I was reading about haldi. I was like, why didn't I have haldi when I was a kid?
Yeah.
It's a natural anti-inflammatory agent. It's amazing.
Yeah. Haldi, garlic, not garlic, ginger. And I've heard really good things about other things like ginseng,
Tulsi,
ashwagandha, like really, really good things. And I think it's all of these things are worth looking into,
100%,
and can be easy add-ons to your quality of life that can actually enhance it a lot.
And it can be a good supplement and improve recovery as well, depending on what your deficiency in according to that.
Yeah.
And as long as water intake and some sort of electrolytes, I tell all my golfers, especially them, and especially cricketers, like, make sure you have some water and make sure you have some electrolytes as well with you on the side. And if they're like, nee, we don't want aura, like jo bhi hai, aura, electrolyte, jo bhi hai, and fast enough, jo bhi hai, I'm like, the basic you can do, just put a pinch of salt in your water. You can at least do that. Just do that, like, whether it's black salt, normal salt, whatever it is for your taste, just do that.
Yeah, people don't know this, right? I was talking to one of my junior athletes, and he's like, Paji, like, I buy 6 bottles of water before a game, and I make sure I drink all of them, but I still cramp up. I was like, homie, that's why you cramp up. That's why you cramp up, right? Like, that's your solution right there. You're basically flushing out all of the electrolyte out of your system. Get some electrolyte. Like, if you're drinking 2 bottles of water, make sure you're at least having 1 bottle of pure electrolyte and water, right? Something like that. But yeah, that's very important. Yeah. So, okay. Prevention discussed, recovery discussed. Now, let's say the athlete does get injured, 100. Right? Yeah. They do something like inconspicuous. They twist their ankle, they have a little bit of sprain in the supraspinatus or something, right? Now, what is your recommendation for how does a person begin the recovery part after an injury, right? And what guardrails do you want to set for? Like, because consider that every person that you want to reach through your words is, what would you say to them?
So in terms of if someone gets injured, like the whole journey behind it.
Yeah, I mean, just how would you approach it, or how should they approach it? And what guardrails do you want to set? Like, yaar, ye to bilkul mat karo. Ya isse pehle mat khelo.
Gotcha. Right? So sometimes when someone gets injured, like whether it's an ankle sprain or anything with the shoulder, whatnot, right? I feel like there's so much inflammation and swelling. And I feel like, this is my personal thought. I think a lot of athletes just need like a physio right away. Yeah. And me, I'm a complete ulta. I'm like, I sit down, calm it down for a complete day. Yeah. Like, I feel like if I even disturb it, you're probably going to move like 10 degrees. Like, what? Like, I'm not going to do anything more than that, especially if it's a serious injury or a serious ankle sprain. So rather just like, take a deep breath, ice it down, anti-inflammatories, all that kind of stuff. Some people are a little bit against anti-inflammatories the first 24 hours because it's blocking the actual healing that's been happening. Yes. But depending on what's coming up in front of them, like within 3 days, 5 days, something really important.
100%.
I'm like, okay, you know what?
It's not that black and white, right? Yeah. So that's the argument against ice as well. That it will hamper the natural, healing process. But it has to be athlete specific.
Exactly. If it constricts something and if it's shutting down some sort of like inflammation, why not? Like we need the inflammatory response, but we also need to reduce the swelling. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of athletes kind of just go straight into be like, Nav, kya hua? I'm like, take a deep breath. First, ice it down. Yeah. What am I going to do that's going to be different? Like first, let that shock phase kind of go and just calm down with the icing. Uski baad, the following day I'll see them. And following day, they're at least 20% better. Yeah. And it's just that. And I think, honestly, what I'll do is not even going to make a difference. Yeah. Right? It'll just be like, too much aching. And next day or next couple of days, depending on when I see them, I will, if there's an injury within, let's just say with the ATL region or the supraspinatus region, I won't obviously go on that pain because there will be a little bit of swelling depending on palpation, but you can go around the joint. Yes. So I think a lot of people have told me like, why are you treating when there's so much swelling in there? Or I'm like, you can go around it because the muscles around it, they kind of go into spasm. They're like, oh shoot, kya ho gaya? Which is actually smart because they're trying to protect the muscle from getting even more injured or getting an excessive range that you're like, don't go to that range. So I think it's a smart way. So we kind of have to break it up to be like, okay, no, theek hai. Like, there's nothing wrong with you, right? Especially after assessment, if we feel like it's not a major injury. Then after a couple of days, then we can go for any scans if needed. Yeah. And a little bit of rehab was time will be started, like also isometrics, depending on the extent of it. And also another reason why we don't go jump straight into an X-ray or an MRI because I want the swelling to kind of go down because it might mask something else also.
Yeah, you want it to be conclusive. You want the diagnosis to be conclusive.
Exactly.
Right?
So that's how I'll go. I'll just kind of calm it down with icing and whatnot. A little bit of manual release around the region and cupping dry needle depending on the phase of the injury and then uske baad, scans if needed, but the rehab will start needed as well.
So you mentioned a really really cool thing that really is I really aligned with it. So see, I don't have a degree, right? I am a fucking college dropout and I have no degree in medical sciences, right? But I've trained a lot of people and I've treated a lot of people, right? And one of the things that I understood, and I did not read this, right? I read this later, and now you're saying it as well, that when you injure your quadricep, the muscles around it go into spasm because they want to protect it from further further injury or whatever, right? I always somehow understood that concept, right? When I would have like a hip flexor injury, I would not train my hip flexor, I would not release my hip flexor, but I would go and work on my adductor, right? I would go and work on my pectineus, right? Because subconsciously I understood that if I strengthen, if I increase the functionality and range of the regions around it, that this will heal quicker. Exactly. Right?
Exactly.
And I think that's why for athletes to think about these things is so important, because a lot of the times even after me getting injured, I've been to a physical therapist, and what they'll do is they will directly start draining fluid in the region that is already already very tender, already hurting.
Exactly.
And I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Like, you should not be going there. You should be leaving it, letting it be. Maybe work around it.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Maybe work on my calf and my soleus, right? I think that will help better. But that was very, very interesting. So one more question I have for you on those lines.
Yes.
One thing I want to get out of you basically is, what guardrails do you set for people to return to sport after any injury?
So that's a very good question. I think that I will kind of speak to the coach and be like, what's like, depending on the position, for example, in football also, what are the demands of that position itself? That's number one. And number two, everything goes really, really slow. Like, for example, for football, we're going to dribble. Okay, no, first don't dribble like within corners and whatnot. And when badminton, don't lunge right away. If you have an ankle or knee injury, you're going to just do standing strokes. So the guardrails will probably be like just from stationary to one-step movement to two-step movement to obviously dynamic movements and whatnot. And I love doing plyo before I get them on the court.
Has to be done. Right?
And I feel like that is a lot of that's a missing factor in a lot of the return to play, because people kind of straight into going to jogging or running, and I'm like, if that person cannot jump, that person cannot run. Like, so oh god.
Facts.
So I make them do high to low, low to high jumping, and then I'll get the SNC also involved, because I feel like they have a crucial role to play as well, dynamically, and their knowledge is way superior, and I get to learn from that as well. So we both were using our brains and be like, okay, how can we get this person going from A to B, B to C? Then I get the coach involved, which is ideally my husband, and be like, what do you want from this person? And Akshit, one thing, he's very good. He's like, that person's slow. That person's still slow. And I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, why? So then we pull them out again. We reassess everything. And I'm like, okay, if they're saying there's no pain. It's that psychological factor too.
100%.
Where I told Akshit, you need to throw that person off the cliff. And he's like, what? I was like, let them go. Just let them go. Give it a couple of days. Like, I was treating one cricketer who plays for women's IPL. And she fractured her ankle. To get her to bowl after 5th month, I confirmed with Dr. Dylan and PGI, and he was like, yeah, she's ready. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. I actually went out and saw, her run up and everything. She was landing on Teddy, Meddy, and I was like, me and that coach came, Nagesh coach, which is a very good coach in Zirikpur. I went over, I'm like, hey, coach, mere hona hai. Ma'am, kuch nahi hai yahan pe. I was like, giri kyun hai ankle mere? It's just, she was not able, everything was done. Balancing, plow, you name it. One of the strongest cricketers I've seen. And it's just that confidence. So Nagesh was like, Nav, and I couldn't go every day. So I was like, sir, is it okay if you report to me tomorrow? So every day, obviously short run-ups. The next day was also short run-ups. And then until 4th day of short run-up, I'm like, Nav, throw her into full run-up. Just do it. And it killed me on the inside. I'm just like, just do it. So full run-up Saturday, I remember, I told her to do only 2 overs. And Nagesh was like, she's absolutely fine. It's one of those, you just have to give the person a little bit of time also.
You're literally, you answered my question, how I think, right? A couple of things that I really want to point out is, if you can't jump, you cannot run. Okay, it's as simple as that. I've said this on thousands of consultations call. I've done 10,000 plus consultations. People come to me and say, I have a little bit of pain in getting up the stairs, but I am fine with slow jogging. I'm like, homie, you do not understand the concept of progression. If you're having pain in getting up and down the stairs, means basic quad loading movements are hurting your knee. That means you are nowhere near the strength levels you need to be. And if I make you jump on that injured side right now, you will think 5 times, and then you will jump in a horrible way, you will land in a horrible way, and you are nowhere near ready being enough to jog again.
Exactly.
Right? So that's one thing. Basically what you said was, which is basically what it is it has to be very step-by-step progression. That's where an SNC coach comes in and helps.
Exactly.
Right? Because physical therapy doesn't teach that. It's not a part of the education.
Exactly.
If an athlete comes in, they're lacking strength, they're lacking functionality, you can help build them up.
Exactly.
Oh, ye functionality nahi hai, oh strength mein imbalance hai, fix kar diya.
100%.
But the sport-specific adaptation and it being very step-by-step is the missing link.
Exactly.
Right? So when I set guardrails, and what you said, and what I would say in a very succinct way, spash shabdon mein, until you can do everything that you need to do on the pitch with confidence off the pitch or not in training, not in a game, but in rehab, don't play.
Exactly.
right?
It'll just reoccur and they'll be
Yes.
like, you want it. And then you just feel like, but at the same time, this is a really cool, in Whitecaps camp, in the farm, not the MLS team, but in the farm team. If someone has an ankle sprain, if I tell them not to kick a ball, they'll look at you and they'll still kick a ball.
Yeah.
So you can't tell like a cricketer to not bowl. They'll look at you and be like, I will bowl. They're very ziddi, which is a good thing. But at the same time, you just have to respect them and be like, chalo theek hai, be on the ground, because they will die if they're not close to the sport.
Yeah.
So you need to be sport specific too.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to get the coach involved. And I think that like back home, I'm so used to working with a team of 4 and team of 5 and putting my hand up and be like, I don't know. Like I will be the first one being like, I don't know your sport. Tell me more about your sport. Like cricket, back home there's no cricket.
Yeah.
Now it's obviously started.
Yeah.
But when I first came, like, ye kya hota hai? Ye kya hota hai? I had to actually understand it. And these, it's like breathe, eat, everything here, cricket, right? Which is awesome to see. And I actually had to come, that's why I went to the cricket ground. Like, tell me exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Right? What am I lacking and stuff? Because it's just room for improvement for me to learn.
Yeah.
My dad always has a saying, if you're in a room with, if you know everything, you're not learning
You're not
anything.
in the
Get
right
out of the
room.
room.
Yeah.
Get out of the room, learn something, right? So I'm like, and that's why I think Akshit, me, and the SNC Sam, we work really closely together and be like, what am I lacking? And there's a lot of things when Akshit got his slapped hair, and like there are a lot of things when it comes to sports specific in badminton. I'm not good at it. I'm not professional, but I'm like, tell me, what do you need, right? So he's like, how would you speak to my coach? And I think he was an Indonesian coach that time. Like, what do you need from the sport? He's like, he's not. He was just like he was an attacker. Or he was a defense player. Attackers need to smash more.
Yeah.
So that takes a lot of time. So I think you need to be communicating. You need to put your hand up and be like, I don't know. So tell me more about your sport.
I have a team of 40 physical therapists.
Hanji.
It's fucking massive. Right?
Yes.
I help create all of the frameworks that we use as a kind of a reference point for major injuries, right?
Hanji.
What I understood was, you understand these things. Whatever. So Nav, sorry, we had a little bit of a power cut. आपको पता है हम इंडिया में रहते हैं, चलता रहता है, ठीक है, कुछ नहीं कर सकते इस बारे में हम. जितने मर्जी वेल फंडेड हो गाइस हम, ये हमारे कंट्रोल से बाहर है, ठीक है. But we were talking about the end-to-end funnel of I would say an athlete. तो प्रिवेंशन की बात कर रहे हैं, रिकवरी की बात कर रहे हैं, हमने रिहैब की बात कर रहे थे. And you mentioned, I mean, exactly what I wanted to get out of the conversation, you said it, so it was awesome. You said basically you, the coach, your husband, and the SNC coach work together to ensure that the athlete has all of the tools and has trained all of the movements or has all of the ability required to get back to the sport, right? And I was saying, this is the hardest part as a physical therapist. I have a team of 40 physical therapists. They're brilliant people. And we created a lot of frameworks and everything. But I feel like unless you are an athlete that understands every little step-by-step progression that goes into sport-specific movement, it is very hard for an outsider to understand, this guy can jump, this guy has good strength. Why are they lacking confidence in doing this movement? Right. Because there are two factors. One of them is psychological, like you mentioned. Psychological readiness is a real thing, right? And sometimes you have to push the athlete over the cliff when you feel like सब कुछ हो गया है, अब सिर्फ psychological रह गया है, right? But the other aspect of people not understanding that there are multiple levels or multiple small progressions that go from somebody being able to jump to somebody being able to sprint, change direction, change the direction in a reactional way, lunge like you would in a badminton, when you're trying to reach for a ball. So many little progressions that go, right? So that is very important. And you said you're constantly learning that and getting better at that, right? What is your recommendation or what is the biggest tip you would give physical therapists or athletic trainers out there on how to get better at training that aspect and eventually at returning people back to sport?
I strongly feel that be the athlete. As in, if I walked in, I came to India 5 years back and I knew nothing about cricket. We don't play cricket at all. It's not weather-friendly sport there and there's no indoor cricket facilities there. But now it has started. So I felt like once I learned more about the sport, what is the demands of a bowler? What are the demands of a batter? What are the demands of the left ankle on the landing phase of a bowler? And how does that feel on me if I keep doing it again and again? I think then you can relate better to the athlete itself. And there's no harm, again, secondly, to put up your hand and be like, I don't know, and get the SNC and coach involved. Like, what do you want from me? Because they've seen it all.
Yes.
And I feel like there's no harm in taking a step back and be like, I can help you till this amount.
Yeah.
What can you do further to make yourself go from, like more sports specific, more return to play and that kind of stuff. And just working as a team, I think in general, not just like, I'm not saying everyone, including myself, I think we tend to know that we know everything, but we need to be like, no, the person in front of me, SNC, whoever it is, the coach, knows better, and we just have to take a step back. Like, I think that will work really, really well for the athlete. And the athlete seeing 3 of us, 4 of us working together to speak for the benefit of the athlete himself, that athlete will feel confident.
Yeah.
Be like, Achha, these 3 are really putting their heads together to make me get on the field, right?
Yeah.
Why am I getting scared?
Yeah.
So it's a huge factor also. And I've seen that also from over the years that, I'm not good at this, but please teach me.
Yeah.
Be willing to learn too.
Is that one of the reasons why you love working with athletes? Because there is that learning curve that has like immense potential.
Exactly. Like, especially sports like wrestling and kabaddi, which I've never, like wrestling, yes, I have worked with, but like kabaddi, I've never worked with in my life. And I think before I had a huge communication gap because they spoke Haryanvi, and I was really scared in the beginning just by the tone. And I'm like, oh my God, right? Did I do anything wrong? And then later it's like, they're very genuine human beings. They're very sweet. And the best is also they bring their, like from their village, they bring their like laddu or jo bhi hai na. And they just bring it to me, and I'm just like, what is this? This is very, very nice. And they're like, ma'am, it's the healthiest thing you'll ever see. Desi kyo, and I'm like, and they're like, khake dekho. I'm like, theek hai. And legit, you're full.
Of course.
And it's heavy, but so yummy. And so I've really, really learned how to, work with kabaddi and wrestling and sports that I've never seen, back home. Because back home we have ice hockey and we do have soccer and basketball. Like, those are the sports. And rugby, sorry. Here, it's completely different. And it's a complete 360 that I'm working with, mostly with cricket, golf, badminton, and wrestling. So,
I had Dr. Navnita Gautam on the show.
Yes.
And he said, this is crazy. He said the same thing about Kabaddi players. He singled out Kabaddi players. He's like, I work with athletes of all kinds. Kabaddi players, genuinely amazing human beings.
So sweet.
And I was like, same.
Yes.
Like we're training a lot of Kabaddi athletes for ACL or PCL injuries mostly, right? Little bit of hamstring issues as well. You will never get a sense of anything is being crafted in their mind. You'll also always get a sense of this guy saying his mind. Like he's being who he is.
Very honest.
Which is so rare.
Very, very.
It says a lot about, the upbringing of the Indian athlete that is playing a sport that is, first of all, originating in India, right? Kabaddi being that. And then them being trained in the original way. Them eating the things that the people who started the sport did, right? Them still training the way the people that started the sport trained in, like, mitti ke khud mitti banate hain, khud sab kuch karte hain, like they create the, akhade themselves.
Exactly.
So wo cheez, I think it is still grounded. And that is a huge reason that these people are so genuine and so still stuck to the roots, even if they are very successful athletes.
And they're very clear, like they have such a clear heart. Like, as in, generally they'll tell me like, ma'am, this was causing me, and they're not from Chandigarh. They're obviously from like mostly Haryana, like rural areas of Haryana. Yeah. So they come from 3-4 hours on the bus to see me, which I'm already in like cloud nine. I'm like, you came this far. So, just that little gesture means a lot to me. And secondly, obviously that's one thing. And they just don't know in terms of, Nav, ma'am, I'm taking this medicine, and looking at the anti-doping rules. I'm like, sir, you cannot take this. But they're not wrong because they're like, mera senior ne bola, mera ye ne, mera coach ne bola.
That's their
and
only
I'm
form
like,
of...
no, don't do it, right? And I in the beginning, when I came 5 years back, I'd be like, oh my God, why are they taking that, the steroids, all that kind of stuff. But they actually don't know.
Yes. They
don't know. They're like, kisne bol diya vagera. And then I'd guide them, be like, please do not take it. Because slowly they will get into competition. They will be testing.
Yes.
So they're very clear and be like, whatever you say, ma'am. I'm like, and not just that, I'll actually show them like the website and be like, these are things.
Yeah.
Be careful before you take anything.
That's awesome.
Very awesome.
That's awesome from you as well. Because these people are like a blank slate. Yeah. And their point of references usually are seniors or the athletes they train with. I've seen that in Taude Villa, like a lot of really good athletes come in, and a lot of them, they dope, right? A lot of them do. And it is simply because they feel like, सारे कर रहे हैं.
Exactly.
Right? I have like that's how everybody is
Yeah.
doing, so it makes sense that I have to do it as well. And for me, I'm like, man, listen, how many people do you actually know who have gotten to the highest level, who are doing that consistently, and then it helps them put that into perspective कि यार हमें नहीं पता कि जो लोग टॉप लेवल पे हैं क्या वो ये कर रहे हैं, या हमें ही ऐसे इस लेवल पे ये बताया जा रहा है कि if you don't do this you will not get to the top level, right? So I think that's really that's a good point. One thing that this reminded me of when I was having this conversation was I read a really cool literature about 6 months ago, and it made a lot of sense, because when you've trained athletes, when you've trained yourself through injuries, you know why people are struggling to recover and get back to their best after a major injury, right? So the research basically said that after any major injury, an athlete is not likely, they will lose muscle strength, they will lose muscle mass, they will have atrophy, their neuromuscular coordination or their ability to recruit muscles will not be the same, and their biomechanics will be altered, right? So those are the 4 major things that will definitely come, or that will definitely be an kind of a residual effect of a major injury. And for me, that made perfect sense, because one of those or multiple, or usually all of those are blockers for people when they get back to sport. They're not ready, they're not confident, they're not moving the right way, they don't have the strength. As a strength, mentally, psychologically, subconsciously, they know, their mind knows that I'm not strong enough to do these things. Do you agree with that?
I 100% agree. And that's why just having everyone from every team, like coaching and SNC is so important, because like, we have the coach to understand the biomechanics before and after the injury. And that person is slow. That person was fast. Now, what are you doing wrong? And I'm like, but the person's pain-free. Like, you check every angles of the joint above, below it, the joint that is injured. And then still it's like, ma'am, kuch pain nahi ho raha. Sometimes just doing a general squat test or a lunge test, like a single leg squat test, is not good enough. And we need to get into the coaching perspective, like, what do you see? Why are they slow? So I think really there's good, better, and best, right? I think if we just look at our physio world, athletic training world, we'll only be good and better, right? But if you get on with another ortho, with an SNC coach, you're obviously going to get best. And I think that improves your overall communication skills also, and the confidence of the player. The player will see that and be like, people are working hard. Psychologically, they'll be like, I have nothing to worry about. I can fall off the cliff and I'll be absolutely okay.
Agreed. So 2 things stem off of that. First of all, you said the coach becomes the reference point for, is that athlete moving the same way they used to?
Yes.
Do you also and this is a good practice in general. I think any sporting ecosystem, when they induct players into that ecosystem, they should have a baseline marker for agility, for strength, for things like that, basically as a reference point for when the athlete gets injured. Do you guys do that right
So
now?
in my MSK screening, musculoskeletal screening, that's when we have a gold standard value. Like, for example, for ankle range of motion, knee to wall test. I'll be like, okay, your range is this, but the gold standard is this. And I try making sure it's more specific to badminton, but it's hard to get. Obviously, you're looking at 10, 12 centimeters, all that kind of stuff. And for a bowler's left-hand ankle, we know it's going to get tight. We know there's going to be, impingement. There's going to be posterior impingement, anterior impingement. There's going to be issues in that ankle. So we want to get it to that range that we need to kind of keep. And we don't want it to have it below 10, ideally. Same thing with badminton. It's hard to find a literature that's focusing only on badminton. So it's the more you do, the more you get. So you have your self-academy kind of, research.
You're doing the research in real time.
Itna the top players are having, we'll keep it to that level.
So the other aspect, like when you're returning somebody back to sport, it's not just baseline markers for that. It's also baseline markers for, we made this guy do a reaction test. He was reacting this many, like you have these tests now where you're like basically touching, lighting points and giving an understanding of how quickly you react and how quickly you move. Do you do something like that as well?
So the SNC, Sam is trying to get in that involved. It's not there yet, but I think we're trying to bridge on to Devi Lal. They have lovely systems. They have I think after Khelo India, they've really brought a lot of that is still in process, because obviously private academy going to that, but ideally I want to use their facilities because they have a lot. I went there and it's all it's only used a couple of times a month. And I feel like if we can use that, it just objectively, it just measures in case when I'm traveling, another physio comes in, I feel like, yahi karna. Because sometimes when it comes to goniometers and measuring, every clinician's also different.
Yes.
So that also, there's a bias right there.
There is.
So if there's a machine, unfortunately, like I would prefer that, and that too convenient.
Yeah.
But that talk is still kind of going on. What are we gonna do for that?
Yeah, like I would love to have that. See, when people come to us, we return a lot of people back to sport. Like that's the thing I'm the most proud of. And putting it into perspective, like in the last 3 years now, we've returned some thousands of people back to sport, which is a huge number. The biggest statistic or the most important statistic for me is that 0% of those people have gotten re-injured so far, right? For me, that means at least the benchmarks being set for progression or clearing people to return to different facets of the game are set in the right places, right? But there is still so much we could do, and it could really help if we had something like that as a baseline expectation to measure the person against. Because what you can measure over an online system, over a digital system, which is how we're doing things right now, is, you know, we did the testing like you guys do. We do the testing, we identify where the person is, we do the step-by-step progression. And when we do the RTS, we have benchmarks. मतलब इतनी strength होनी चाहिए, इतनी power होनी चाहिए, मतलब agility का baseline ये है, blah blah blah. But wouldn't it be awesome if I had some tangible data on that guy and how does that guy move, how quickly and efficiently does that guy move? Because that is a apples to apples comparison.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think that is very important.
Some sort of objective measure. Like you can't cheat numbers.
Yes.
Subjectively, you can cheat, but objectively, if there's a number and you're like, you were this and now you're this,
Numbers don't lie.
Players automatically be like, oh shit, I've seen an improvement. 100%.
So I would, you know, like, I mean, with you, I'm trying to kind of have conversations that I feel like कि साला हर एक athlete के पास अगर ये बात जाए ना तो उसको भला हो जाएगा. So this is that kind of a conversation where I feel like every athlete who is seriously pursuing a sport, they should want to, and they should have a place where they can get tested on all of these things.
Exactly.
Have that test handy, because not only do they understand where they lack, but also in case they get injured or they join a new program with a new team or something, they have that data and be like, you know, this is where I was, guys. And you can either improve the baseline numbers, or if I get injured and you have to bring me, this is the baseline number you have to get me back to.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And I think that's so inspiring, especially if you're going from academy to academy, team to team. You can take that file with you wherever you go as well. And it doesn't have to be like, for example, like an MSK screening or like an SNC screen. It doesn't have to be like once a month. It's something when it can be once every 3 months, 4 months, and whatnot
6
as
months,
well.
yes, 100%.
So it's really convenient too.
Yeah. So, okay, we've talked a lot about a lot of things. I think still a little bit of context is missing on who you are.
Yes.
And we are very late into the podcast in that sense, but we still haven't discussed that. So I want to understand a little bit about your background. Like, how did you get into AT? Why? What was the journey like? And obviously, the elephant in the room in that sense is people remember or people know you mostly for your work with RCB.
Yes.
Right? How did you get into that? What was your experience with that? So just give me the...
Thank you.
I'm listening now.
Awesome. So I did something very unique called athletic training. So in US and Canada, it's very big.
Yes.
Right? Every college, every university, every high school now, all have athletic therapy, right? And I think that's why the grassroots level and framework level is so like vast in North America, is because we start the kids young and that too done properly. So physiotherapist, obviously, I think in India, you go straight into your BPT, then your MPT. And in Canada and US, in North America, you have to do your bachelor's of science or kinesiology. Then you do your master's of physio, or then you do your PhD, whatnot. Athletic training is kind of the same thing, where you now there's a bachelor's program in AT, but everyone prefers to do a bachelor's of kinesiology or science, which I did. Bachelor's of kinesiology from Simon Fraser University. Then uske baad, I was at a little road, so I was like a little confused what I wanted to do in life, because I'm someone that like I take a break and I work and then I see, because like practically that's how the system works there. And then I realized I really wanted to go into athletic training. I've seen it working with teams, and in India it's mostly, I bet, like physios are mostly with teams, and North America it's athletic therapists that are mostly with teams.
What is the difference?
Not much of a difference, honestly. And I feel like a lot of, like I've shadowed under a lot of lovely physios in Canada, as well as in the States and here, and now in Europe, because I travel a lot with the European tour. And it all depends who you're shadow under.
Yeah.
ठीक है, but physiotherapists, hats off. I think they have a very, very vast knowledge of everything.
Yeah.
In all different spectrum, in all different, categories of
Yes.
people, in all different, post-surgical, cardiac, and there's different varieties of things, and they have amazing amounts of knowledge. Athletic trainers are more, I think, for athletes themselves, yes, also for general clients as well, but it really gets to a point that, do you want to work with the team or do you want to work in the clinic?
Yeah.
If you do work with the clinic, you will be with a lot of physio, so you kind of end up sharing a lot of knowledge and be like, what do you like and what do you don't like?
Yeah.
So they do interchange their roles. Same thing with a lot of physios now are going, physios and ATs are doing more S&Cs now. You just have to find a fine line between respecting everyone's, boundaries and at the same time, like, doing what you like also.
But do you think, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think, like you said, we get really good outcomes, or we give the patient confidence that we'll get really good outcomes because we have all of the bases covered?
Ji.
We have an SNC, we will consult an ortho where required.
Hanji.
We will have the coach who understands player specific,
Yeah.
concepts. Now you have a lot of different personnel. Do you feel like as a person in your field, the skill set would be complete if you had the background of physical therapy, if you had the experience of working with athletes and specific techniques that athletes like soft tissue, like taping, like all of those things, and then if you had the progressive conditioning knowledge of an SNC?
Yes. Like holistically, you kind of just look at it and you can guide the athlete better.
Yeah.
Be like, I don't think this is, I don't think I can help you further. I think we are going to go into more an S&C thing. And you just have a broad knowledge of everything. You're not stepping on anyone's feet. It's just that zid to kind of learn and be better. Yeah. It's kind of like, that's the main reason why I did my master's as well. So I did my bachelor's of kinesiology and then my bachelor's of science in athletic training. And just in June, I finished my master's of science in athletic training.
Congratulations.
Thank you. From Arizona, ATSU, online.
Yeah.
So I've pretty much studied as much as I can, and but let's see, might do more. So then slowly, the one thing I really love about my bachelor's of athletic training degree is they purposely took 4 months in the summer off. You like go work with teams.
Yes.
Go work with teams. I could have finished my degree from 4 years to maybe 3 years. There's no point. They're like, go work. So that's where I got into Whitecaps for 4 months.
Yeah.
So like, I was in Victoria Island. I came back home. I was doing a fast food job on the side, McDonald's. Yeah. And on the side, I'm like, chalo, theek, I'll do Whitecaps.
You flip burgers too?
I flip burgers.
Love that.
And fast food, I've done a lot. I've worked in fast food for 3-4 years.
That's awesome.
And at the age of 16 started. And I think that has also taught me a lot.
Yeah, of course.
So yes, Whitecaps and which is football. I worked a lot with basketball, like university teams, and I've traveled a lot with basketball. So those are stuff that I did, and practically I learned so much on the spot, and with all that pressure. And now when something happens, I'm not stressed out or anything because I've been there, done that at a young age too.
Yeah.
And so. One thing about me, I'm very ziddi, which my husband can vouch on that. My parents also. Yeah. My dad is a huge cricket fan. And it's how I feel like my cricket story started. My dad used to watch cricket at 3 a.m. because of time difference. Yeah. India team, IPL, jo bhi hai na. And he needed a partner to watch with, so he'll drag me. I had no knowledge. I was like 5-year-old, 6 years old, and he
had you up at 3 a.m.?
Yeah, he was like, mere saath dekh. He like, mere saath popcorn kha. And I'm like, yeah. And I would just fall asleep on the couch, right? Yeah. Kept doing that every year, 15, and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, I'm a huge why I've worked with only men's team back home. Yeah. Like I've never worked with a women's team. Ek other team, men's team mainly.
That's very interesting. We'll dive into that.
Never worked with women's team. So I kept watching IPL, cricket. I'm like, Dad, why isn't there a women's team, women's, staff on the dugout? Yeah, he's like, Putter, is dunya, is side of the world, ye sab hota nahi hai. क्यों नहीं होता है? I'm like, this is the dumbest, I'm sorry, this is the stupidest question. I'm, maybe because my dad was born in Hoshiarpur, India, and then he went, right? So like, then samajh nahi aanda, just chup rahe. I'm like, theek hai. So then I started thinking, I was a teenager. Kept thinking every year. I'm like, yaar, ladki kyun nahi hoti yaar in cricket teams, ya koi bhi team, India mein, or, in Asia. And then I started doing my research about, physios, athletic trainers in Asia. I'm like, that's really great. So then I was like, chale yaar, it's in the back of my head. So then I told my Mama Ji. My Mama Ji was like, he came to Canada when he was 18 years old. Now he's like 65. So he's been there like since the start.
So now he's from second, third generation.
Yeah. So he was like, why? And I was like, Mama Ji, I kind of want to go to India. He's like, तू पागल हो गई है, like you know, like
हम
पागल हैं,
ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਮਸਾ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਤੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈ.
हम पागल हैं. And then you know he was a legal immigrant, like done that, married a Canadian, so बड़ी लंबी कहानी मामा था, right? It's like हम पागल हैं, हमने बस में तेरी बहन ये तेरी मम्मी को लेके आई है, all that kind of stuff. I'm like okay fine, right? After my dad is like just finished a degree, and I was still ziddy in college. I was like, let me go to India. He was like, listen, just chup kar, just finish a degree, finish my kinesiology. Then I wanted genuinely to do athletic therapy. Then I told my dad, I'm done my degrees, can I go? He's like, you still had the same goal. I'm like, मुझे बस जान दे. Like I'll find out. My mom started crying, dad, like, क्या कर रही हो? And that time I got into University of Western Ontario, University of Western Oregon for a chiropractor school. So I was going to go into doctorate of chiropractic, and my parents were like, doctor ban jayegi kudi. And generally inside I'm like, I didn't want to go.
I don't want to do that.
I know my parents are like, doctor ban jayegi, number one. Number two is like, she'll be set financially. But generally I was just like, like it didn't amaze me. And that time, you know, like my grandma was also a very big feminist. She was just like, जो कुछ भी करना दिल से कर, पैसे, if you're good, पैसे will come. मैं कहा ठीक है, right? And in the deathbed also, when my grandma, I was very close to my grandma, she said one thing. She was like, don't work 9 to 5. Do something ulta in life. मैं कहा ठीक है. That was the last couple of words before she passed away. मैं कहा ठीक है. So I lied to my parents. So it's a very, very interesting story. So my dad is like, first get a job in India, then you can go. मैं कहा ठीक है. So that time FIBA Asia Cup was happening for basketball in Bangalore.
Okay.
So all the teams were here. Australia, New Zealand, India was also in the B category that time. So I told my dad I got a job with India basketball. So like, such much? I'm like, हाँ, all that kind of stuff. But I lied, right? So like pay, way, sab kuch ye hai. And he was like, chal check, fine, do. My mom's like still like adamant, don't go. And I'm like, I'm going. So I booked my ticket, I went right after my degree was done. You told me to get degrees, so I got my degree. I went to Delhi. I actually went to clinics, and I emailed a lot of clinics, which I realized in India people don't email.
They don't.
Back 5 years ago. I'm
They
like,
don't.
Wait response.
Even today, they don't.
And I'm like, wait response. You know that I genuinely want a job. Like I'll work for whatever amount. I just want to be exposed to the Indian sports medicine community. Went to Delhi, begged, like went to clinic, and they're like, well, you know, this is our amount, whatever, 10 grand, that time 15 grand, kuch bhi ho, which is very like, you make that in like how many days there, right? But I was like, it's not about the money, I just want to learn. So that was Delhi. And then after Delhi, I took a train from Delhi to Bombay. I went to Kokilaman Ambani Hospital, met a lovely physiotherapy physio there who helped me out about what the structure there. He got me a job in Bangalore. So thanks to him and his team, I worked also in a Bangalore clinic. I had no one, I didn't know anyone in Bangalore. No friends. I didn't even know Kannada. I didn't even know Hindi, right? So I met one friend from the clinic and they started helping about. They helped me a lot. And that was 2 years there. Then slowly, cricketers, because NCA was really close, cricketers found out about me. Then my first cricketer, I still remember, was Varun Aaron.
Oh, the fast bowler.
Yes. He was our first cricketer. Then
awesome.
Then it was more and more cricketers. And then I met a lot of SNC. Then they're like, there's a girl named Nav. And then slowly. And I've never actually had an approach or jugaad to get into cricket. I ended up treating some people from RCB in terms of the management. That's where I'm just like, hi, I want to get into cricket and IPL. And they're like, acha. Right? I'm like, I genuinely want to.
Yeah.
Then bus interview gayi, and I told them that, hi, I'm Nav, and I told them exactly how we are in this podcast, that I work, I stick to my work, and that's it. And you guys have to trust me for that, right? Yeah. I'm not someone that would be like, kya kar, you know, like I'm very, very like, I'll stick to my work and that's it.
I think you got lucky in the sense that your first job was in Bangalore.
Yes.
Because it is a place that you can branch out and, you know, learn a lot and build new connections and actually start off from really well.
Exactly. And I think the RCB management supports have been amazing and just getting along with that. And then finally I get in and it's my 5th year. So it's been such a lovely journey with them.
Yeah, we'll break that down. I think the guys want to fucking change something because electricity is light वापस आ चुकी है. Congrats. AC चल रहा है अब. ठीक है. तो picking up from where we left, now you lived a entire journey, a journey with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of figuring out, a lot of, like you said, stubbornness involved in, I want to do this and I'm going to figure my way out. One thing I want to ask you is, because when I lived in the US, I got a lot of feel for this. Athletic training was big. It was in the sense that a lot of people were picking it up, especially young people who wanted to be involved in sports medicine. There is a certain pull of actually training people on, on the field or actually training athletes that's attractive, that's more enticing or more exciting. But I know there is a significant difference in how these people get paid, also in how they get viewed, right? So from chiropractor to physical therapist to athletic trainer, right? The pay grades and the respect and everything you do, it changes, right?
Yes.
So like, what would you say, because I was talking to my head athletic trainer when I was in the US.
Hanji.
Awesome guy, very funny guy, but he eventually quit and became a firefighter.
Acha, okay.
Right? Because it was not paying him enough and a lot of hard work, but not paying him enough. So my conversation with him was the same. I was like, why? Like, if this is a blocker for you now, why didn't you almost spend the same amount of years doing this? Why didn't you just become a PT? Right? It's like, at that point, I just wanted to do this. This seemed better for me, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I kind of just depends, like, as in, it depends on, you will start off with grassroots level teams like high schools and college, and that's how it's all about experience and the people that you know. And if you connect better, like, it's being at the right time, like, right place at the right time, ideally. That's number one. Second thing is, I do see athletic trainers and a lot of, like, even physios, they kind of do go into sporting environment, becoming an athlete themselves, or, being in the firefighter world, in the police world, or even the army, which is very normal, it kind of just, I think that is just preference, what they want to do. Even back home, I was flipping burgers in McDonald's, and on the side I was doing athletic therapy and working with teams. And, a lot of the Whitecaps players were like, why are you doing it? I'm like, it's summer, bro. You got to make money, right? You got to pay for the other 8 months of the year. Rent.
I don't get paid nearly enough. You have no idea.
So it's a lot of money, right? Especially because I was living on rent also. Yeah. So, and I agree. Like, if you don't work in the clinic, I think on the field, it's still a little bit, there is very less pay compared to if you work in the clinic. Because the clinic, this person will come in, will pay you this much. Right? On field, and more sports therapist job is more like you will get this per month, whether you see 10 people, whether you see one person. So clinic, you have a fixed income that if I see 6 people, I will get a good range. It might be like 2 times higher, 3 times higher. So I guess if that example of your lovely athletic trainer, if he does go more into clinical or like strictly clinical, I think he would have been really well. But I think it just depends on preferences, what he wants to do at the end.
Won't clinical be then physical therapy? And
in Canada especially, and then especially also in the States, like there is athletic therapy clinics, and it's covered by insurance also. And now it's like there's the multidisciplinary clinics that has physios, chiropractors, and athletic trainers, and everyone has like a different, different speciality, different niche and whatnot, and they do a referral within amongst themselves. And I think athletes prefer that too because it's like a one-stop shop. It's say theek nahi ho raha, koi baat nahi. This athletic trainer has Graston. Well, this physio doesn't believe in Graston but has laser. It's just you can bounce off ideas accordingly. That's why I feel like we're all the same, but it just depends on what you really, really specialize in and what you really like.
Makes sense. So, I mean, difference still would be physical therapists are more technical people, right? And athletic trainers are more hands-on people, right? That major differentiation. Baki, there is a lot of overlap, obviously.
Yes, 100%.
Some athletic trainers can be very technical.
Yes.
And some physical therapists, like there is an overlap there. Makes sense. ठीक है, and I think in India there is no differentiation. You are either a physical therapist or a doctor.
Yes.
Right? तो physical therapy अगर आप कर रहे हो, first of all India में बहुत ही under appreciated profession, right? Something that I am very passionate about changing because I genuinely believe, and now that we are, so my goal also when we started Granimals and we started figuring out that rehab is what we wanted to do, or physical therapy being one aspect of it, exercise therapy, I saw that to make the ecosystem complete, I need the right diagnosis, and I need a person who I can trust with the procedure. So you need an ortho on your side. That's why now we have like collaborations with a decent amount of orthopedics, right?
Very good.
So you have orthos, they do the right diagnosis, they do the surgical procedure if required, and then the handoff between them and physical therapist is very smooth.
Yes.
Which is very good for the patient.
Exactly.
Right? Very good for the patient. Now, I am constantly working on improving our team in concepts of strength and conditioning and sports specific training. Because I feel like ortho, physio, right? We can't do AT because we're digital. So ortho, physio, which is exercise therapy. And then if we also understand concepts of strength and conditioning and sports specific training, that is what will complete the loop.
I agree, 100%. I think that's a good, end-to-end thing. Exactly what you're talking about. And ATs can just exactly like PTs, they can just give exercises depending on the diagnosis also. So ATs do come into the picture also in between in this module also with diagnosis and be like, acha, hands-on hair, but yeah, it just it's all rough and tough. Like what really generally want to do. I do a lot of hands-on because I'm mostly seeing the person, but I do see a lot of online clients also from back home that I've seen over the years also. Yeah. And there's mostly just like, okay, self-release this, activate this, and then go from there from this gym routine and you're absolutely okay.
So amazing, because we are now getting to the point of I mean, we do digital physical therapy, right? So I think it is still a huge black box.
Yes.
It's still something that is not understood in India, even though the largest providers of physical therapy in the world are digital.
Yes.
Right? Sword Health, Fun Health, Hinge Health, all platforms that are completely digital.
100.
Right? And I think we are kind of paving the way for that to happen in India. So you also being somebody who does it physically and digitally, please, for the audience that feels like physical therapy cannot be done digitally, what would you say?
I think digital physiotherapy is going to be the future, honestly.
Yes.
And it depends. And honestly, you don't have to see any
Yes.
therapist every day.
Thank you.
You don't have to have a 30-session package. I'm saying it. I'm sorry. It might be against a lot of people here. Sorry. You don't have to get a 20-session package and have to go every day.
Yeah.
You go there once a week. What's the diagnosis? What do I have to do? Self-train yourself. You know the rehab pattern. Follow that.
Yeah.
And you'll be absolutely okay. I promise you that. And honestly, you'll feel better amongst yourself. Be like, मैंने खुद किया ये.
Exactly.
मैंने खुद
Great
किया
point.
ये, and you've seen the changes yourself rather than being dependent on someone and being like, अच्छा, let's do heel slide, or let's do glute, let's do a clamshell thing. I'm like, you can do that stuff on your own.
Yeah, and brilliant points. So I think, like you said, diagnosis, and then if you do have somebody who's really good and you want to see them once a week is fine.
Absolutely.
Right? Say the same things. Like you do a root cause analysis, we do a very thorough root cause analysis. So when people come to us, they're like, but if you don't touch me, how will you understand this? I'm like, bro, everything is quantifiable.
Yes.
Right? You said knee to wall. I can check your ankle mobility. I can check your hamstring tightness. I can check your functionality. I can check your stability. I can check your strength. Everything is quantifiable. Right? And then beyond that, once I've done the analysis, like you said, with your athletes, all you need is progressive strengthening.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So there is this kid, and a really good example came to my mind. They just got operated, right? And he was like, "Yaar, one of the things you mentioned was you teach people independence, which is super important as an athlete." So I told this kid, he's like, "Ki mere na insurance mein covered hai. Should I get some physical therapy at home?" I was like, "Listen, if I was in your place, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Simply because it is just comfort.
Exactly. 100%.
You will feel better for sure, because they will come, they will make you do the exact same things that I am or your therapist is prescribing you here, but you will just have the support and hand holding of somebody.
Exactly.
You'll feel comfortable.
100%.
If you want to feel comfortable, go ahead, do it, but it's not required.
Exactly. And that's one thing, even at my academy, that's I'm like, I knew for sure, like a lot of people ask me this, like, Nav, why don't you do your 20-session packet, 30-session packet? I'm like, it doesn't go with my principles.
Yes.
I don't believe in it.
I respect
if
that.
you like my service, great. If you don't, I personally will refer you to another physio or an ortho, or like I'm like that. Like I'm just like, if you don't like me, it's fine. But majority of the people like love my work, right? This is more clinical. This is not with teams.
Yeah.
Teams gets that's a little different because you're with them and your job is to be with them, and they're paid
in season, right?
X amount of money that you have to be on top of everything day in and day out. In the clinic, it's a little bit more like, okay, theory, exercise, and all that. And academy also, I'm introducing this topic because I want these guys to be rigid and self-confident amongst themselves and not be, I don't want to handhold them at a young age.
That's the best point. Guys, please, anybody listening to this, start learning about your body.
Yeah.
If you get the right guidance, that is enough. Everything else can be done by you, because that is how you will understand how your body works. Okay. That is so important for your growth and sustenance as an athlete.
Exactly.
Right? So, back to RCB. I know a lot of people follow cricket, would be crazy about understanding your experience. So one of the things you mentioned was your pop said, you will realize this, I catch everything and I store it in a part of my brain.
Wow.
And then I will bring it up when I feel like, okay, this is now relevant. So your pop said, it just doesn't work like that. You don't see women on the cricket field, right? And I think you caught a lot of attention when you became that woman on the cricket field, because people were first of all, not used to it.
Yes.
Secondly, all of a sudden they see it now in a field full of guys and testosterone. There is a girl out there, and everybody's like, who's this girl? Like, you know, like, because it's just a new thing. It's just a different kind of a thing. So what was that attention like for you? Did it take away from the job a little bit also?
So that was COVID Dubai. So there was no audience except for the camera.
TV audience.
The cameraman had to find something different.
Yeah.
And then there's me just sitting. And then before I used to have like badam and constantly eat. I'm like, Nav, do not eat or chew. Because I realized the camera was too much on me. And at random times, and I'm like, oh yaar, badam bhi khane hai yaar, but I have to look okay too yaar. So I was like, now thoda sa control kar le, kuch mat khao. And focusing on the match if anyone needs me. But my role is a little bit different because I'm not head in the men's team, which I never want to be head in the men because I get the opportunity to learn this year from two of the top physios, one from UK, one from South Africa.
Okay.
And every year I want to be under them.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. Women's team also, like I just love being a learner.
Yeah.
So my job would mainly be that if someone needs me, I have to be inside the dressing room area. So I'd come out a couple of times and drag out. So every single time I used to come out, it'd be like cameras, and I'm like, yaar, ek to yaar, bachao yaar. You know, you come to just sit to watch, and you're like, okay, thinking twice before like, you know, doing anything. So
is my leg shaking?
Yeah.
Am I touching my nose too much?
Exactly. So COVID time, that was a little challenging, and I don't blame anyone because they needed something, and I was like the most odd person out there.
I fucking don't like that, you know. I don't, and I think it's central to sports. Even if you look at American sports, they will randomly, because cricket is the same thing. You can't take the camera away in a football match because you will miss shit. Cricket में एक ball होती है, आधे मिनट का gap होता है, and they need to keep the user engaged. So they are shuttling to random things, girls, and I mean obviously very engaging.
Yes.
As an audience, and the audience is mostly men.
Yeah.
When you see women, you stay engaged, right? So I think you became that, and I read a little bit about an incident with a cricketer, and I was like, you guys have no idea what is happening there, and you made something out of it.
Exactly.
Like you have no fucking clue what is happening. It's people having a conversation.
Exactly. Right? I'm like, okay, now, like, how do I even like, you know, like, what do I even do? To like sit like an army officer, like, kya karu, right? But otherwise, I'm just like, honestly, it's not just me. If these cricketers have to go through a lot of memes. Yeah. I'm like, who am I? Yaar? If these guys can go through it, what am I? So otherwise, yeah, it was a very good experience. I was learning how to just focus with my work and not be. So I've till this day I don't have Instagram. I don't handle my Instagram because I think that has really helped me, and also because I was wasting too much time on it too. That's one, and I have someone else looking after that.
Okay.
And sorry, and your second question was?
My question was, how did you acclimatize to all of the tension you were getting? Right?
Yeah.
What was that?
That was, I think, acclimatized to the tension. That just over time. You know, being exposed to so much camera and suddenly like, you know, like in the rough and tough of the sport, you just like, you have so much adrenaline going that you can't have time to think. Yeah. You're just like, go, kuch na kuch hoga kaam. And then you sit down and you're like, okay. And then there's cameras. You're like, okay, just go to and then I started being comfortable. If I felt really uncomfortable, I'll just go back to the dressing room, which was easy, which was not bad. And with the players, it was very easy. Like, cricketers are very genuine gentlemen. Yeah. They are awesome, and I like for any girl out there or woman out there who's little, like, you know, like has just like working with the men's team, it's amazing. Like I have absolutely till
I've
this
always
day,
heard
no
that
complaints.
from women.
I respect these guys are top notch and very caring also, and very respectful. Like kaam karo, niklo, done. And if they need anything from the side also, when there's water bottle, I don't know, they'll think twice, be like, "Yaar, Nav, can you do this and this?" I'm like, bro.
I got this.
Treat me like a guy. I'll do your work, and I generally want to do your work, right? So मुझे इतना fuss भी नहीं है. Like, and I felt like I have to think like a guy. I'm like, and I'm very comfortable with guys because they're very yes, no. Yeah. While if I worked with a women's team back home one time, it's like yes, but you know, cat fight beach में. And I'm like, oh yeah, like you know, like hi na, right?
So what you're basically saying?
नहीं यार, don't include this then.
What you're basically saying? What you're basically saying is that with guys, it's just simpler because
like,
everybody's on the same page.
No, as in like maybe because I've worked with men's team all my life, it's very like yes, no, like very clear cut, like very clear cut. While women's team, I was thinking like, did they like my treatment or did they not? Did they not?
Being jokes apart, you know, women and guys are different. Like, guys are much more simpler to understand. We are not complex creatures, right? We are And that's the fascinating thing about women, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why people have written fucking poems about women. Nobody has ever written a poem about a guy, because we are so fucking easy to understand, right?
Yeah.
Women are complex, and you have to, layer by layer try to understand what
Yes.
they mean, because it'll not always be on the surface. With guys, it'll be like, yeah, dude, I'm good. I just need some food. Okay, that's
Exactly.
it's that clear, right? So that makes sense. But quickly, one question or one thing I think a lot of people would be curious to understand. I mean, not assuming that a lot of people will listen to this podcast. In general, I am also curious. What was Kyle Jameson saying to you?
He was not saying, he was showing me his New Balance shoes. So,
And that's what people equated to
so I
flirting.
really like New Balance. Like,
Yeah.
I love New Balance. India mein New Balance shoes अच्छे नहीं है. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't like it. Nike hai, A6 hai, Brooks hai. So I always, whenever my parents come from Canada to India, I tell them to get my New Balance shoes. So he had New Balance here. I think a lot of Kiwis wear New Balance.
Yeah, they do.
So I was staring at it. I was like, yeah, they kahan se aaya? Like, I was very passionate about it. Like, rang birangi bhi tha. So that.
80s have a really thing, like a proper thing for like jogging, running shoes.
Yes,
why-
exactly.
My 80s in college, they were crazy, and they would always talk about Nike collection meri ye hai.
Exactly,
I
हाँ.
bought this color, is very cool. Have you looked at this color?
So it's a big thing. So
Yeah.
there was New Balance shoes. The New Balance, पहली बार मैंने अच्छा वाला देखा था. So I got very excited. That was it.
It was that simple. And you see how people can build things up. But it is a very interesting dynamic. A woman being on a men's field is such an interesting dynamic and a very eye-catching dynamic. मेरे दिमाग में एक चीज़ याद आई अभी.
हाँ जी.
There used to be a physio with Chelsea. Her name was Eva.
हाँ.
I don't remember her full name. Okay. She became a sensation. Like everybody on the planet recognized her at some point. She was during Mourinho's reign. Before Mourinho, and then when Mourinho came, he actually, I think, phased her out because she was getting a lot of attention. So I remember a conversation with my college mates, and they thought that Eva was very attractive, right? Because on a guy's pitch, though, your testosterone is running high, and then when you see a girl running in, you're like, oh, she's very attractive. And then the guys were like, bhai, but when I saw her off the pitch, I didn't think she was that attractive. So it just tells you that when people are in that frame of mind and they're watching a sport and everybody's testosterone levels are running high, you tend to romanticize and create dynamics that don't exist, right? You create, like Eva, I don't even know what her name was, but she never worked in football again. And I think because she also got sick of that attention, that it's taking away from the work I'm doing.
Yeah, I feel like that's one thing my dad also said. He's like, don't focus on any of that. Just focus on your work. Kaam se kaam ka matlab rakho. And one thing which I think it was in my interview, the first interview when I got into IPL, I made everyone my brother. Until this day, I make everyone my brother. Like I tie a Rakhi on, like I buy like 100 Rakhis.
Yeah.
And I start tying it on everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think for me, I think that just makes, so I'm very bubbly.
Yeah.
And that gets, when I first came to India, that was mistaken.
It can be,
And
yes.
I genuinely didn't know.
Yes, I know.
Because I'm very bubbly. Like I'm very like, Abhi, it looks like I've calmed down, but I've kind of calmed down. But I'm very like, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Because wahan ka bhi aisa hai,
Yeah,
like,
no,
hi, how are you? The welcome is just
Canadians are
good.
super nice in general.
And they're,
man.
they're known to be stupidly nice. Like
Yes.
stupidly say sorry for no
Very
reason.
nice, yes.
And so I'm like, मैंने कुछ गलत बोल लिया भी नहीं. So people comments will go, like this is like in a clinic when I was working in Bangalore. मैंने generally कुछ गलत नहीं बोला. So then I was like, अच्छा, now listen. If I have to live in India, I have to tone down a bit. And
That's
it's
smart.
it's nothing bad.
Yeah.
It's a learning curve. Like if I choose to live in India,
It's
I
a
have
culture
to be,
thing, right?
I have to be, I have to change, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like a big change. I'm fine. I'm okay with this change. So same thing in the men's IPL. There are some things that I'm like, okay, now, come ka matlab rakho. Like, and I don't drink or anything like that. Like I know my job is in the medical field, so mera ye hai ki I have to be, I have to be proper. I have to be proper in every which way. And this is interesting also. In my athletic therapy degree, when I was doing internship, not with with Whitecaps, but any team you go to in the internships, you actually have to sign a contract. One of the contracts was also likha tha कि we cannot wear tight clothing. No tights, no nothing. And a lot of girls were like, yaar, kyun nahi? And I thought it was good. I'm like, just don't even give them any chance in anything, whether you're working with men's team or women's team. So I followed that to the T. And that mindset is still in India. I'm very like, like my husband's like, why are you wearing baggy kapde, collared shirts, dress pants? I'm like, when it's like, it's stuck in my head now.
Yeah.
And it's been working.
Yeah.
So I don't want to change anything. And I'm comfortable. I'm very, very comfortable.
No, that makes so much sense, man. Matlab,
You have to be proper.
Yes.
And like from our end as well. And obviously, whatever happens. But like, we have to be proper. Like from my end, I can control the controllables, and I think I've ticked the boxes for everything, and I make sure I do that.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to leave anything unturned that maine kuch kiya nahi.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
You're wearing the proper attire for a 80, like a polo shirt, shorts,
Classic,
and
yeah.
socks.
I just don't have the khakis. They wear khakis.
They sometimes they wear khakis on the field. They would sometimes wear shorts, right?
Yep.
But very like that's my image of an 80 as well. And like I said, we had a very small school, and most of the athletes were either studying business or studying 80, right? So a lot of them were studying 80, and they would wear khakis, and they would wear a collar polo shirt, and then joggers, right? And or either shorts. So it makes so much sense that when you came into a new environment, it's got nothing negative. It's just everything is culture, right?
Yeah.
When you come here in Canada, in the US as well, there's a lot of small talk.
Yeah.
People do a lot of small talk. You'll be passing by and they'll be like, oh, how's your day been so far? And they're passing by, and maybe they don't even want to hear what you have to say. It's just something that's said in greeting, right? It's not done in India, right? And in India, it can be misconstrued as, oh, she's being forward or whatever.
Exactly. And that's when I stopped doing them. Like, I guess I need to calm down. Because I used to be very friendly. Like, someone just walking, hey, how's it going? And they're like, me? I'm like, haan, tu. I'm like, and I'm just like,
who else?
I'm like, tu hi hai? I'm like, how's it going? Then I started calling everyone, Hanji, Paji, Kidda, Paji, Kidda, or like, Hanji, ki hal chal? And I'm like, I'm just normal talk. And then I'm like, okay, I think I've set the tone that everyone's my brother. So all sorted.
Yeah, I think boundary setting is very, very important.
Very, and I made it very clear. I was like, because now I understand. I'm like, okay, now if I am being bubbly, just make sure you're clear from your end. Just be excessively clear.
Yeah.
That's about it. Otherwise, no problem, India.
Yeah, 100%.
I love India, honestly.
India is an awesome place. And see, Dr. Manit Arora also came that day, and he also, this is something I find interesting. Like, he had good opportunities in Australia, and he was like, but for some reason, I wanted to come in India. I found ways or reasons to come to India, right? While I was pursuing or waiting for my master's, I was like, let me just go to India and see what's up there. And then he came here, he fell in love with the ecosystem. Obviously, one thing that you're also realizing while coming down here is that technically Indian people are brilliant, right?
Amazing.
Brilliant. Like, I think that's the difference. When I talk to some of the really good physical therapists on my team, they're all very good. But some of the more technical ones, you can understand their grasp of technical concepts is brilliant. Like they know the body inside out.
Amazing.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that's something that every person, even doctors, when they come to India, there can be gaps in, practical learning. But I think technically we have a knack for, going into detail, going into actually understanding the science really well.
Right. Exactly. And I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot in India. And like, especially these guys, especially the physios, the orthos here, I'm truly grateful. Because the stuff that I will learn back home, yes, a lot of practical knowledge. It's kind of like, especially when you look at European tour, Asian tour, because you're a travel therapist. You don't know a lot about the player, but you know how to get them fixed for that tournament. So there's a huge difference between travel, clinical therapists. There's a huge difference. Like, I would say I'm a better travel therapist because I know what to do in 20 minutes to get the person fit.
That's a really good point.
Adrenaline because I've worked in high performance.
Yeah.
Right, but when it comes to clinical, I might be lagging behind, but I know if I get myself fully into it, I'll be better. So it just depends on, which area do you go to.
Yeah, you choose, right? You choose, and obviously you have to have ability in all markers, but you choose what you want to specialize in, right? Amazing. So one thing that came to mind while I was having this discussion with you, which I think I want to discuss and get your thoughts on, is longevity, right? Okay. So when I talk about longevity, there are two things that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and I say this on a lot of consultation calls, right? So there's a lot of research that has recently come out in the last 5-6 years that has put a lot of things in perspective, right? So in the sense that sarcopenia, so basically people losing muscle mass with age, it is very widely accepted, especially in India. Yaar, ye to umar ke saath hona hi hai, right? You're getting older, I'm getting weaker, this is just age.
Yeah.
But then there are outliers in front of you, right? Like my mom, I don't know if you met her, but she's like, I'm not going to speak her age because obviously I might get killed, but she is, like looks very young, has really good muscle mass, very strong, runs marathons, bicycles, professional dancer, lifts a lot of weight, right? So there is people on that end who are like much older and still everything is young, right?
Yeah.
And then there are people who are 35, 40 and have started already having like loss of muscle mass and atrophy. Basically, the research that I read said that after the age of 30, every decade you lose approximately 3 to 8% muscle mass, right? And the only way to avoid that is if you do resistance training very regularly, right?
Yeah.
And then there are other factors as well, like protein intake and stuff. But what are your thoughts on that?
So I tell this to everyone. So usually my main clientele when I'm in the clinic in Chandigarh is athletes, right?
Yeah.
But there are a lot of cricketers or golfers like, can you see my mom? Can you see my dad? And I will see them once, but then there are some times that I will refer them onwards because I don't think I'm the best in this population. But however, there are a lot of also above 40, above 50, a lot of golfers that are that I see. So they are fit because they're walking 18 holes and whatnot, but still like their muscle mass is losing. And I tell this one clear thing to them. Number one is sitting is the new smoking. Please get up and walk. They go and play golf. Great. But I'm like, you need to do that. Like that is only one part of the day. That's 2 times a week.
You need to move.
You need to move. So every hour, get up and walk. I yell at a lot of lawyers in Chandigarh because they don't never listen to me. They're sitting. I understand it's a really important profession in Chandigarh and they work 12 hours, very hard working job.
Of course, have to be.
But and June is the only month that they have off completely. I was like, you need to walk around. I don't care if you're a top-notch lawyer or judge, walk around. So whatever, so that's one thing is sitting is a new smoking, walk every hour. Even if you put your jelly beans like 10 seconds away, go and get your jelly beans or get your water bottle, whatever it is. Second thing is 2 times a week minimum do at least some resistance training. It doesn't have to be crazy. It can just be even with the band to start off with. I just need some because everyone will have some sort of form of arthritis, osteoarthritis, some sort of bone decay, degeneration, whatnot. Everyone, you, me, everyone. We just got to face it. Whatever we have left is our muscle and how much we've worked on it. But that's not something that you get within 2 weeks. This is over the years.
Years of working,
So 2 times a week is enough. And I think in India, especially what I've noticed is a lot of people are into yoga, which is excellent. I don't have nothing to do.
But
it's mobility, which is excellent, but you need stability. You need some strength, resistance training that's going there. So,
we have so many people with you who, they built their life around yoga. And yoga is amazing, man. It is one of the best things that humans have created. But it is not a complete science. You need to supplement it with strength training because then you have joint pains. We have so many people, they feel good until they start having joint pains and then they keep doing their yoga and they feel like it is going to get better and it does not.
Exactly.
Because you are losing muscle mass with age. When you're losing muscle mass, you will see that your ability to do yoga asanas also decreases. Because you lose 100%. Mobility as well.
100%.
Right? So please continue and educate our audience.
That's my only recommendation. So I like keeping things simple because one thing I've learned over the years is when I first came, I used to give 10 exercises to people. Then I'm like, okay, now start with 2, 3. So be little baby steps. So my only recommendation right now at this point will be like 2 times a week at least. Anyone above 30 especially, 2 times a week at least. Resistance training, strength training, kuch bhi hai. If you don't want to go to the gym, there should be some sort of weight at your house. It's very simple, like 2 heavy backpacks are enough. Just something or the other to keep you going. 30 minutes is way above enough. Yeah,
that's a very good point. Me and my mom made a lot of makeshift weights during COVID and we got strong. We fucking put on some muscle during COVID, right? Because there's nothing else to do, right? And we used it productively.
Awesome.
But longevity की बात कर रहे थे. So you said resistance training twice a week. I'll go back to the literature. Literature ने क्या बोला कि you can every decade lose from 3 to 8% muscle mass. That gets quicker after you hit 60. But at the same time, if you keep doing resistance training, you can even with age keep putting on more muscle, right? Which is your best bet to keep your joints healthy and to stay longer, live longer, right?
Yes, yeah.
So the same research, what fascinated me about that research was because it gave me a lot of clarity on something I already believed. What they did was they did ultrasound scans of people's muscle, right? They saw 75-year-old guy, 75-year-old guy, on the surface a 75-year-old guy, very old, but somebody who was resistance training his entire life, 3 to 4 times a day, all his life this guy had been doing weight
Yeah.
training. They looked at his muscle scans. His quality of muscle was pristine.
Yes.
When I say pristine, I mean it was like a brand new fucking baby muscle. Okay, pristine quality muscle. And then they looked at the muscle of a 40-year-old person who did not do any resistance training, and his muscle had just huge patches of fat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That puts so much into perspective for me, and I think that is something Indian people need to friggin' understand. Matlab, because it is the biggest problem in our countries, right? Matlab, in the Western world, especially in North America.
Yeah.
Especially in North America and then down south in Australia and New Zealand. I think people take this seriously.
Yeah.
People move a lot, they're very active, they do resistance training.
Right.
I think in India, the concept of sair karna and yoga.
I was just about to say, the walks are crazy.
Yes, it's just people feel like I have done my part, I am good to go, and I'm like, homie, like you have knee pain, and your only form of exercise as a 55, 60-year-old person is 10,000 steps. You are just fucking up your knees worse.
Exactly. And they don't understand there's a ground reaction force coming from the ground.
Yes.
It's also the trauma, and they'll even that treadmill and that kind of stuff. So even if you go to a park and you're doing walking, at least do some sort of a little bit of strength training on the side, even at the park itself. That's bare minimum. But
Yes.
I guess the whole like walking yoga really needs to change here, and it is changing definitely. But I think the population. I've spoken to my mother-in-law about this. I'm like, why don't you go to the gym? She's like, all these years we haven't, and they feel a little uncomfortable. Like
It's a huge change.
wearing their normal Indian attire and going into wearing something that's sweatpants and that is beyond their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And which I respect, I understand, and I personally don't understand. I can't relate to it, but I understand that what she's going through. So I was like, okay, let's do something at least on the like balcony or like bahar, right? All that kind of stuff. So she has definitely started cycling. I would prefer that over walking. Also,
100%
honestly,
lower impact.
just to get obviously in that age category above 50, 60. So if not, if you're, if someone is a little bit hesitant to do a little strength training, go into the pool at least.
Yes.
Go, do a mix, do a variety of things besides sad and yoga. Swim, karo, swimming nahi aati, koi baat nahi, right? Do a little knee to chest. Like simple stuff like that can really go a long way, right? The pressure of the pool, the buoyancy of the pool will really, really help the joints
it's
also.
good resistance, it's natural resistance.
And then in combination with a little bit of exercise. And it doesn't have to be 1 hour. I think everyone's mindset, ghanta, gym mein. I'm like, you just need 30 minutes.
30 minutes
30
is more
minutes
than enough, right?
Way above enough.
So, like, I haven't been regularly training for the last 3 months. Before that, what I started doing was I would do because my entire life was built around football. And you require a lot of time to train, right? So what I started doing when I stopped having the time and I was not actively pursuing professional football, which has been for the last now almost a year, what I started doing was kettlebell workouts, right? I would just put on a 30-minute workout. You're done in literally 28, 30 minutes. You have I was sweating my everything off. I sweat a lot in general when my, body temperature has gone up. I was sweating like crazy. My cardio was still I would say maintaining my cardio as a professional athlete, which is a very high level of cardio. I've won fitness tests all over the planet, so I was a very fit person, right? I was maintaining that level of cardio doing a 30-minute kettlebell session.
Yeah.
So I think people overestimate and use this as an excuse.
Yeah.
कि यार समय नहीं है, equipment नहीं है. What you said was perfect. You walk to a freaking park and do 10 squats, 10 lunges, 10 calf raises each side.
Incline push-ups. That's
basic push-ups, and start from somewhere. And I promise you, as long as you can build that habit, it is progressive.
Exactly.
You can do anything with time.
100%.
Like my father is a great example. He's somebody, proper Punjabi guy, right? He has never worked out a day in his life. I'm not kidding. He has never been to a gym, right? But he started having a lot of pain here. He had cervical spine, a little bit of arthritis, disc herniation here. So radiating pain down the arm. And I was just watching him, right? Because I know his personality. I know कि जब तक जान पे नहीं आएगी तब ये नहीं हिलेंगे, right? So I am not that guy who will try to push change. I feel like change when it is supposed to happen will come. People will come to you for help. So I was just watching him. I was like, try every kind of physical therapy. I am here when you need me. But my method is going to be exercise. I don't know how to use modalities. I don't have it. I don't champion it.
Exactly.
Come to me when you've tried everything. Tried physical therapy, would feel better someday, would feel shit next day, then would have a lot of pain. Got him to start working out. We worked out for 7 weeks.
Yeah.
We worked out for 7 weeks. This guy went from like, because having pain here, having very poor range of motion in the shoulder, lot of cracking, grinding noises in the shoulder because of that, lot of tightness in the traps, in the levator scapulae, all of this region, in the collar region. We would do basic resisted leg raises, abductions, adductions, extensions, flexions. From there, in 6-7 weeks, we went to doing it with 7.5 kg dumbbells, right? Bench presses with 10 kg dumbbells. He had been having back pain for a long time, gone, because built a lot of strength in the posterior chain. In just 6-7 weeks, posture improved, strength improved, everything improved, muscle mass started improving. In 7 weeks, as a 60-year-old guy who has never worked out in his life, that is the power of progressive strengthening. Did he stick to it? No, because the moment he started feeling better, oh yaar, ek kam pੈ ਗਿਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ, ਕੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਉਹ ਕੰਮ ਪੈ ਗਿਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ, because that is human nature, right? But that is my way of telling the world that sustainability is literally progressive strength training will fucking do the job for you.
And it's a long-term solution. I keep telling people, everyone that walks into like my clinic, I tell them that like I won't help you as much as the exercise will help you. And they look at me, they're like, really? So I'll see you tomorrow. I'm like, I'll see you next week. And they're just like, what am I going to do for 20 minutes? Obviously, I love my hands-on work, but at the same time, I bring them outside. And they themselves, especially if it's a 50, 60-year-old person, they look around the gym and I put the mat down. They're like, they're still looking around. I'm like, Ajoji, where's Joji? And they're like, okay, they're very cautious. Right? They're not used to the environment. But when they do it, then they start noticing a difference. They're like, actually, better ho gaya, strong ho gaya, which is great. But it's changing. I think it's just a matter of a little bit of time, and a little bit goes a long ways. I think also we can't give too many exercises. That I learned from my mistakes. I just give them 3-4. I'm like, yehi karo daily 2 times a day, and you sort it.
But the mindset has to be fostered on day one that it has to be progressive.
100%.
Right? 100%. People get very comfortable doing 5 exercises, and you usually will start with no resistance, just body weight, right? You want to tell them, hey, guy, you are having degenerative changes that come from age. You've experienced a lot of muscle mass, sarcopenia. You need to, your best bet of being active and healthy at the age of 80, 85, 90 is resistance training.
Exactly.
These 5 exercises will only take you so far.
Exactly.
Right? I think that education is very important. A lot of people are realizing that because Indian populace right now, the majority is 25 to 30 year olds. Right? So my demographic, where you're seeing your parents get older and you're like, I want to do something for them. If you want to do something for them, get them to start doing resistance training. If that means you take 30 minutes out of your schedule and force them to do it, to build a habit, that is the best thing you will ever do for your parents.
I absolutely
ever.
agree with you.
I don't think there is a better gift, there is a better investment you can make than saying, Dad, fuck it. I've tried everything. I've sent you to expensive gyms with expensive trainers. I am the only person that can kick your ass and get you to be regular. I'm going to devote 30 minutes of my time and make sure that you're on the same page.
Exactly.
Right? That's what I did with my father. I'll have to do it again. But I think that's the only way it would have worked. I could have gotten him the best trainer in the world. My father would not have given a shit.
Yeah.
He would have found ways to run around that guy. It was only I where it was a very funny time also because my father doesn't listen to people. But at 10:30 a.m., he knew he had to show up or that I would punish him in the workouts. Wall sits, I would punish him. 30 seconds karo. Oh, bas kaka, oh, bas mere patte par gaye, oh, bas kaka. Chup karke baithe raho, kuch nahi ho raha tumne.
Till this day, like my husband's daddy has a stroke on left side. So exercise obviously in the long term. So she's like, malish kar de. I'm like, Daddy. She's like, mere zamane mein na malish hi chalti hai. I'm like, Daddy, aapka zamana khatam ho gaya. Okay, we're going to stick to exercise. So 2 times a day she's doing. And every single day, she knows 3:30. Right? Khana khati hai. She starts late, 3:20 on purpose. She's like, hajam nahi hua khana. And I'm like, yaar, 3:30 okay, I have to run to the academy. And she's like, okay. And then rona dhona shuru ho, to main kabhi theek nahi hona vagara. I'm like, okay. Now I've learned. I'm like, let's go. Like just I put like loud old music on in my little I'm like, chalo. And then you complain. I'm like, chalo karna ke nahi bhai. And then she's fine, like, okay, fine. Tune maine marna hai. I'm like, jo apne sochna, chalo, kariye.
But that's
so that is a long time. She's at the age of 88. Every doctor that we went to in Chandigarh and Panchkula have said that we've never seen someone improve that much.
And
she's walking with support, obviously, but she's dragging her foot at the 3rd month of her stroke.
मैं वही कह रहा हूँ कि सब कुछ
barely
possible
see
है.
that at the age of 88.
And how good of a learning is that for you? Because that's not a demographic,
Exactly.
right?
So that's last time I saw stroke patient was like in my AT degree, right?
Yeah.
When obviously internship, you have to be exposed to everything.
Yeah.
Uske baad maine dekha nahi. I'm like, this is not my first. That's why, like the Paris wali physio, she's way younger than me. So I told her, like, teach me. And she looked at me, she's like, ma'am, how can I teach you? I'm like, I want to learn from you.
Yeah.
You guys are neurophysios.
Neuro is very different.
It's very different. And we work very closely because she comes in the morning, I do it in the afternoon. And I'm like, teach me, what are your goals? And then she's doing this. I'm like, I'm not going to repeat what you did, but I'll do this. And then we're working in tangent very well. So,
release is very, very specific for neuro patients, right?
Yep.
Very specific.
So,
what thing to do, what points to touch, how.
Release, we don't do. Like, that's the
techniques for.
Barely do it. Yeah.
Even mobilization, right?
Mobilization very less because she's very fragile and she had surgeries in the past for her lower back and her hip. She had a fall. Otherwise, right now, it's strictly exercise for 1 hour.
So fall again is sarcopenia, guys, right?
Exactly. Especially at this age.
Yeah, with age, like I said, after 30 you start losing muscle mass. After 60 you lose even more. It happens even quicker. And because you're losing strength and muscle, the support for the joints is not there. You lose proprioception. You start falling often. Your joints are brittle. Your bones are brittle. They break more often. सब चीजों का इलाज strength training है.
Strength training.
Right?
Exactly.
Another thing you said where you said swimming. I remembered another. Guys, I am not a huge research guy. I just come across some cool research. आप सोच रहे हो भाई ये बंदा ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. मैं कोई research नहीं पढ़ता. मेरे पास काम बहुत है दिन में, right? But another research I read which was very fascinating was basically delved into how sports can create longevity. And swimming, and guess what was even higher than swimming on that? Guess. You will never be able to guess, but when I tell you this, it will make sense to you.
Some sort of, like, is it a sport you're talking
Yes.
about? Some balancing sport.
Racket sport.
Sorry? Racket sport. Fantastic.
Badminton and table tennis.
Hey.
Table tennis and badminton, research shows, can increase your lifespan by up to 10 years. Right? And why? Very simple. And swimming is the second. Swimming because it has a lot of cognitive benefits besides the cardiovascular benefits and strength benefits. Why table tennis and racket sports? Because first of all, the cardio benefits, right? Secondly, hand-eye coordination, agility, reflexes stay sharp even with age. Thirdly, besides the two cardiovascular, hand-eye coordination, it is something that you can sustain for a longer time, because you cannot sustain football at 60, 70, but you can sustain table tennis, pickleball, badminton, right? At some level, for a very long age, right? And then obviously because you're playing a sport, you're still training your muscles, you retain muscle mass, you retain strength, and it's not a very high impact sport for the most part, especially table tennis. Right. So you're putting yourself in a really good position to stay young, to increase longevity.
I agree. Even in our academy, we do have a lot of members, and they're 60, 70, and there's a lot of them that come out and play out. And I feel like, now just comparing to that, like back in North America mainly, there's a lot of good long-term athlete development program, LTAD, from the start, from like the age of 5, 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, right? That we don't specialize these guys into like doing badminton nahi khelna, doing football nahi khelna, right? It's just simple jump, run, throw, like
become
little
better
stuff
athlete,
like that.
right?
Which when I came to India, I feel like that was lacking.
Yes, it is.
And I feel like at a grassroots level, like a lot of my husband was telling me this, that physical education class, he's like, मैंने तो अपना paper खत्म करना था, मेरा last homework नहीं किया मैंने, या lunch खा रहा था, all that kind of stuff. He's like, that needs to really be so important.
It needs to change,
That 1 hour should be physical education, whether it's a sport, whatever it is, and it should be consistent. Right? Even like the villages, I'm sponsoring a couple of little villages in Hoshiarpur region.
Amazing.
And they're also, I introduced basketball, and they looked at it like, what is this, right? And they've never seen basketball. So, the head of that school.
Pindo mein to sirf football, cricket, kabaddi.
And I'm like, that is excellent. But start introducing other sports. There might be a niche, there might be some other athletes that want other sports as well, right? And it's just getting them exposed to this and making sure, like, LTAD model, that even if you don't want to introduce them to a sport, do at least run, jump, throw, like simple hand-eye coordination stuff. Exactly. That'll help benefit them in the future, and that'll improve on the longevity of the athlete as well.
I think it's so 2 topics now, but the first topic, which is not only an athlete, but for a human to retain ability, it's so important that you keep working on reflexes.
Yep.
So, like my brother talked to me a couple of months ago, and he was like, I do resistance training, and everything is good. One thing I recommended to him was, if anybody genuinely wants to stay young, you have to keep training your fast twitch fibers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
You have to, because that is the quickest thing to lose, and if you don't lose that, you maintain a lot of ability with age. So what would your recommendations be? Because now also a lot of people, even 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, moving towards some sort of recreational sports, right? So what would your recommendation be for people to keep training that?
When I personally don't think you can train like a slow twitch and fast twitch, either you're born with it or not. Ideally that, right? So you're the sprinter. But there is some research that does talk about it depending on the testing process. But I agree, as long as it depends on the type of sport too. Like if you're looking at golf, you're gonna slow down everything anyways, right? It's not much. But if you are playing a racket sport, and that's like squash, badminton, obviously, you are gonna train things at a much higher intensity level compared to a sport that's more stop and go sport. So definitely it's trainable. And even if you pick up any recreational sport per se, right? Whether it's just, like a lot of people are just playing just for the health because it's just, cardio based kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even 1 time, 2 times a week is excellent for it. Whether you train the type of twitches, like the type of muscle that you want to train, or the type of quality of muscle, whether it's fast or switch, fast or slow. Ideally, it's just the method of you just going out.
Yeah.
That's my end result.
That's a very interesting thing you said, that I don't think you can get either you have it or not. I differ a little bit.
Yeah.
I do believe that yes, you're born with it.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. But I have seen people get quicker even at like after 25 years of age, right? So I think there is a latent ability that everybody has that can be trained and can be brought to activity. So that means your maximal strength levels can be trained. Your power production ability can be improved. You can learn how to hip hinge and produce power, right? Which is Olympic lifts and stuff, and a lot of other things, right? Even contrast training at the base level, right? And sprinting mechanics.
That's very true.
Yes.
That is very true. 100%. That's a biggie. That's a big one.
So I feel like when I think about fast twitch fiber work, and fuck the complex part of it, when I think about like fast work, I mean genuinely footwork.
Yes.
Right? I feel like everybody should be training footwork. Even if if I use this on the floor as a reference point and I'm just doing, chops around this, I feel like things like that can retain your body's ability to react, retain your reflexes. And then when you pair that with a sport, where you're actually using those reflexes, that means retention of those abilities.
Absolutely. And I've seen that a lot of my 100 meter, 200 meter sprinters from Jalandhar who come once a week to me. I've seen a huge difference in them as well, especially because before, like going through 3 years and just measuring their ankles and whatever, there's not really something I can actually test. But overall, their videos, their foot placement and everything, it's a huge difference in between that. A lot of fast bowlers are now going into sprinting. Why? Because they're actually learning the mechanics of how can I distribute my force better? How can I be better? How can I land better? So that's one thing I've noticed. I've seen before and after. One that woman's IPL key player who went from sprinting, working with a sprint coach in Chandigarh also, to going back on the field landing mechanics. Huge improved.
He's so fascinating though. As an athlete, my understanding of training, like I trained a top squash player. I returned him back to sport when we started Granimals. Me and Siddharth were the first 2 therapists, right? Basically. So when I was thinking about movement mechanics, it is very fascinating how they're very similar in all the sports, right? But another example of why this is so fascinating to me was I was watching Neeraj Chopra, right? During the Olympics this time. I've never watched javelin, right? I finished work at 11:30 or something. I went and my pops was watching. I was like, oh, what is happening? He's like, yeah. I was like, I was going to work out, but okay, I'll skip it. I'll watch this, right? I was looking at it and it was so fascinating, their entire run up, right? There are so many little components to that, right? On the surface, it is just ki bhai banda bala phenk raha hai, right? But there are so many finer qualities there. Like Neeraj Chopra, you can see he trains a lot of sprinting mechanics. He trains a lot of power production. He trains a lot of rotational power,
Right.
because it is all about rotational power. You have to generate so much power from a landing position from your back leg, and obviously the momentum you're carrying, and channel it into one throw.
Yeah.
Right. For me, I was trying to visualize how I would do it, and I was just thinking, this is years of work.
Exactly.
Everything has to be broken down.
Exactly.
Everything has to be trained.
And it's a hard one to for javelin throwers because they need 120 degrees. Like, it's like baseball throwers, right? And I'm like, oh my God, because you know something. There needs to be a mini slap tear in order
Yeah.
for you to get to that range.
Yes.
You need to have a tear.
Fucking
But
crazy.
in a healthy way that you're strengthening everything else in the posterior capsule
Yeah.
to make sure acha tear hua, because you need that degree, the
Yeah.
extra 30 degrees to go back into external rotation to hold that javelin.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, you need that strength.
You need so much strength.
कि इतना भी नहीं dip हो जाए कि भाई it goes from 30 to 40, 40 to 50.
And Nav,
Huh.
athletes don't give a shit
Yeah.
about when you're competing. You want to fucking put every ounce of
100%.
every piece of strength in there. And looking at those people, they're warming up and then they wear their jackets after every throw. It's basically 6 throws that determine everything.
Yeah.
Right? Now in all of those throws, 5 मिनट बाद आपकी बारी आ रही है, थोड़ा सा कूल डाउन हो गया, फिर से आप जाके थ्रो कर रहे हो, राइट? फॉर मी, when I was watching Neeraj Chopra train, I have not watched a lot of it, but I was watching it. It made a lot of sense that these people train extreme ranges, right?
Yeah.
Because your body has to be in extreme ranges, like you said.
Exactly.
कि यार मतलब वो चीज करने के लिए थोड़ा सा स्लैप टेयर शायद होना जरूरी है,
हाँ.
right? That is so crazy.
So crazy. And then that's just even in badminton. Everyone's like, oh, ma'am, like, everyone have a little bit, like, they'll go for an MRI and wherever X amount of plays and they're like, I have a tear. I'm like, that's fine, come. And like, what? I'm like, you need that tear in order to get for the overhand, like overhead and all that kind of stuff. And it's very, very normal to have. But within comfort, you need to build your posterior capsule. It's not strong.
Yeah.
Same thing. You need to cheat the system in a way that you need to generate some power from rotational power.
Yes.
You need to generate some sort of hip mobility in terms of that. So you need to kind of cheat the system too. कि इतना भी नहीं 100% strength यहाँ पे से आए, like rotational भी, hip me, so it needs to go all in a certain thing. Golf, I took this one course called TPI, Titleist Performance Institute, in COVID time. I took it. I'm like, tell them 1 month. Oh, bhai sahab, they will break down the force distribution from the foot, the biomechanics and force distribution from the foot to the knee to the hip. kahan se jayega, how much lats should take, and I'm like, wow. And that really opened up. Then technically I thought about it. Golf is kind of like cricket.
It
right?
is.
And I'm like,
so much rotational
and
power
once
required.
I started working, I kind of started relating a lot of golf stuff with cricket, and I've seen a massive difference. I started cheating the system, and where it's like, okay, let's not put so much load here. Where can we fit in the other percentages?
Yeah.
And it worked out very, very well.
You know, I was because Tiger Woods is a fucking legend, right?
Yeah.
And pure golfers are, for them, Tiger Woods is God, right? So I was talking to a pure golfer, and he was telling me, "Here, Tiger Woods, his body's fucked up. I mean, besides the accident he went through, which was major, just years of golf can put your body." And from a layman perspective, somebody who's been a football player, I'm like, man, golf mein kya hai?
So, yes.
Like, it was like you're fucking standing there and hitting a ball. And then he broke down what you said, force production.
It's a lot.
He said when you are hitting a long drive, your body has to go through so much force in that one swing. Your knees have to absorb so much force. It is crazy. Like, in the long run, you're bound to have hip and knee problems because of how much force your body has to put through in a stagnant position, creating so much power. And that really opened up my mind as well.
And golf, naturally, the starting position is lumbar flexion.
Yes.
Whether you have an S curve, C curve, that's another story,
That's a
right?
good point.
But you're already prone right from you start, and you're like, So therefore, you do have to make everything else around strong, whether it's your obliques, whether whatnot, and just to distribute X amount of miles per hour you're going through. And you have to hit that one spot. So cricket mein na, the dynamics of ball aati hai, you move around, chalo knock hoti hai, drive hoti hai, cover, sweep, jo bhi hai na, you can distribute your load.
You did RCB proud now, right now, with all of the knowledge of shots.
Yes. Golf mein, it's one stop, pataka. You just have to hit one shot. It's in a
It's not a
stationary
power,
ball. You can see how much momentum is distributed to that. And another thing is, like, I have this lovely golfer. She plays for Ladies European Tour.
Okay.
She got a fracture on her fourth metatarsal. And I was confused. I'm like, did you fall, trip, nothing? She's like, Kuch nahi. I'm like,
Just impact.
I was like, what happened? Like, what happened? She was like, then I started dissecting. She was a player from Europe. Mega kya hua? So she was like, my coach just made me. So when you in the downswing, you usually flare out your left foot because you need to just you need the force to distribute. A lot of golfers you see, they do and they hold the position. Left ankle is somewhere else, right?
Okay.
So her coach said to keep it there, right? Because I think it was going. We wanted to make it more sexual or something. It's more coaching, technical stuff. So doing that, she fractured her fourth metatarsal.
That's crazy.
So I was like, that's the only thing I was about. I'm like, anything else.
That is crazy.
So that's the only change here. No change to the weight of the club. No change to anything else. So it's very, very important how much speed that comes in. How much your poor little, ankle has to be so strong.
Your poor little pinky and the fucking metatarsal above it has to take. But that is really putting things into perspective. यार मतलब बहुत crazy चीज़ है. When that fucking Netflix documentary Drive came out, people realized कि भाई F1 के लिए किस किस्म की like for a layman, you don't understand to be a top level athlete and anything. Your body has to have incredible conditioning.
Yeah.
Also, obviously specific to the sport.
Yeah.
Now, Tiger Woods is not going to beat me in a yo-yo test.
Yeah.
Right? Tiger Woods' strength and athleticism is, accustomed to what golf requires.
Exactly.
You said a lot of strength in the obliques, a lot of strength in the posterior chain, a lot of rotational power, and obviously immense technique and force distribution across the entire body.
Exactly.
Right? Which 100%. Is crazy technical for any layman. Yes.
Very technical. I also saw the same thing when I started working with golf. I was like, hey, how does this work? And then ek adi bari yaar like swing a club in CJ and I'm like, I understand now. Right? Next day you wake up, you're like, left side puri tight ho jati hai.
Everything is hurting.
And you're like, oh bhai, ye hai. This is something. 100%.
But I love that you as a PT, just to train people better, also experience what they might feel in the sport. I think that's very important.
100%.
Yeah.
You have to get in there. You have to just understand why this is hurting. Like why would this person ask for this?
Yeah, for any PTs listening,
you have to be answerable to everything.
Yeah, like that's an amazing point.
And my other thing would be like exactly the F1 that you said. So I use F1 as an example. So a lot of physios actually contact me and a massage therapist. They're like, what is AT? Like what makes you so different? How are you, you on to this team. You're on European tour now. I'm like, you need to understand that these athletes just want one person, one-stop shop to fixing anything. They don't have time to go from point A to point B. They just want them fixed. Their job is to be an athlete. They don't have time for you. They come for you for 1 hour and not exercise. Yes, for like 30 minutes I'll do, but they're like they need some hands-on because the amount of work that they're doing 6 days a week also. So that's one. And second thing is, how in F1 people the car comes and there's like people fixing the tires. Yeah. I'm like, you guys are gonna be. We are all maintenance. We are all mechanic.
That's a good analogy.
We are there to fix it. Especially in golf, I don't have much time. 20 minutes they need, and I'm like, chalada, right? And all they want is they come from traveling 4th week. They just want like someone to get in there. There are some spots they just can't do. Yeah. Right? Some rehab exercise that are just like nahi ho raha hai. So you can defeat mattresses change every hotel.
That's a fucking good point too.
So you need to be those mechanics and stuff. And I feel like everyone just kind of hesitates sometimes with doing hands-on because they're like, yeah, you massage wale hote. I'm like, dude, you gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Hands-on, 100%. Man. Like, just find those knots and stuff. And that's how it works in the real world. Outside North America, you gotta be hands-on. Mix it with exercise. Yes.
F1 changed people's perspectives because, and me too. Like, I understood how much strength you need in the neck, which is a very important thing. You need an insane amount of strength in the neck, or your neck will break with all of the pressure in that cockpit and the pressure with which you're changing direction. Another thing I learned was, which makes sense now when you listen to it, is that they have crazy reflexes. Yeah. Like insane reflexes, right? Their reflexes are significantly quicker than any other athletes, right? Simply because they have to make decisions and do shit at 300 miles an hour, right? Yeah. Which is crazy.
That's crazy.
Right? 300 kilometers an hour, not 300 miles an hour, 300 to 400 kilometers an hour. But yeah, I think this conversation in itself we can have for hours.
Yes.
Because it's such a fascinating conversation to have.
Yes.
So, you mentioned LDATA, right? Basically a program where they encourage kids early on to experiment, to play different sports because according to people, it's a more wholesome way of training an athlete. And all of that counts and, results in creating a better athlete because he understands different movement mechanics. Yeah. He learns different skills. Yeah. So in basketball, in racket sports, you learn hand-eye coordination a lot. In football, you learn foot-eye coordination. If that's a real thing, I think it should be. Yeah. But different things learned, and
Yes.
footwork more in football, right? Different things learned in different sports, and it all helps you become a better athlete, right?
Exactly.
So
100%.
like that's not being done in India, right?
Yeah, LTAD it's been started in Bangalore especially, which is great. Like schools are actually putting the attention that LTAD, even if there's nothing, do a little something, jump, throw, something or the other, just to get the person going. And it doesn't have to be specifically to specializing into a sport. So I feel like every school, like that's one of my things. Actually, two things in my head that hopefully in the next couple of years I will, once I have enough time, is number one is those elementary school kids that walk and have a rectangular size backpack,
Oh, of course.
and they have that backpack weighs more than the kid.
Yeah, I was
And
that kid.
that's one of the kid. I am like that. I feel like personally needs to go. That is very very heavy for the back. And I was like, I think that's the starting cause of all the
One
back
can argue
issues.
that is necessary
I know, but
to
it's
build
like
toughness. Yeah. Literally, I remember this moment when I was in 7th, 8th grade, 6th, 7th grade.
Hanji.
There would be days where I genuinely felt like my backpack was 15-20 kgs, right? But then again, that builds character.
That's right. And then instead of that, I would have a locker system. But I know that will take a little bit of time for
that's
that,
true.
obviously. And second
I'm
thing
just
is,
joking. Your point is more valid. I'm just trying to put the Indian mindset कि भाई बंदे को tough भी तो बनाना है, सब कुछ दे दोगे तो
I
क्या
told my
होगा?
dad this. My dad's like, don't make us weak, okay? You can also carry. I'm like, leh. Right? So I agree with that as well. But second thing is just some sort of module in every school.
Yeah.
And that too until like the village area as well. Like it needs to be regulated all over India.
Yeah. One of our first coaches, his name was Abhilash, shout out. Very smart guy who read a lot. So we were training a couple of 6, 7, 8-year-old football players. So he was very of the mindset that they should play different sports. It will help them become better football players, because their father was very crazy about these kids have to play in Europe someday, right?
Yeah.
So we would recommend to his father कि यार इन्हें और चीजें भी करवाओ, like get them to swim, get them to play different sport, because it will help create. First of all, it will ensure that they don't get burnt out by football.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Secondly, it will teach them different things. I think that's another very important aspect. But I'm forgetting something I wanted to say about LDATA is, firstly, different dynamics and different movements that are trained. Secondly, different disciplines. Thirdly, how important is that to a child's development in general, not even in an athletic way, right? Sport and playing different sports. What are your
Honestly, they're able to, it's a time management. They know that they have a sport. They have to study within this X amount of time break that they do have.
social skills,
100%.
right?
And just time management, social skills. And, like medical school back home in North America, the interview is not about medical stuff. It's about what sport did you play?
Yeah.
Oh, acha, where did you work? In the chiropractor school, when I went for my interview in University of Western Oregon before I said no to it, that was the question. I came in all prepared, medical science, everything. And they're like, what sport did you used to play in high school? Acha, what do you like doing? And I'm like, heh? I was like, what is this? And that's what they exactly want. Can you balance your life?
They want to
do
check
you have a
character,
life? And that's excellent.
Yeah.
100%.
They want to check character, and I think nothing builds character like sport. Nothing can, because you lose,
You win.
you win,
Yeah.
you need to gel with other people, understand their dynamics, learn how to be social and make friends,
Exactly.
and learn how to do hard shit.
Yeah.
The most important thing I feel like every human is missing is we do all of this work in life to get comfortable.
Yeah.
Everything कि यार मैंने इतनी मेहनत करी, मैंने इतनी डिग्री करी, अब मेरे पास पैसा है. I think one thing that should never be missed is the day you become completely comfortable and you stop doing hard things is the day you start getting older, right? You have to find hard things to do every day.
Yeah.
Everything else can be comfortable because you need to create productivity at work. You need coffee at the right time. You need AC, blah, blah, blah. But every human being should be doing at least 1 or 2 things a day that are hard, that are pushing them out of their comfort zone, because that is the only way they will grow.
Exactly. 100%.
Talked about how character is built by sport. Of all, literally, sport guys, parents, please make your child play sports. It will be good for them. Trust me. They might get injured and stuff, but they will learn from that also. But yeah. So, Nav, I think a lot of physical therapists will look up to you, physical therapists and athletic trainers, because there is a certain, everybody wants progression. And when you are in that field, especially in India, I think people, the way they visualize avenues of progression is limited right now. And you said a lot of people come to you and get counseling for that. So what is your recommendation for people on, you know, for physical therapists, like trainers watching out there who are like, oh, you know, I want to be like Navnita. Like dream job, that's my dream job. How should they go about, first of all, preparing themselves from a skill set standpoint to be that good and to be at that place? And then also, how can they start getting into those opportunities?
I think I understand, like in India, after +2, it's BPT and then MPT where you get into, which is excellent. Within your BPT degree, go find a team. Go find a team, whether it's it's like the team that's close to your house, whatever it is, just get yourself exposed. I remember in my high school, I used to work extra in hospitals, or, you know, I used to just work with any team without getting paid and just work and just be hands-on, just learn under someone. So that's exactly what I want to do, whether it's even in high school, like whether you're in, just the more you get exposed, the more you get to meet people, and the more you kind of cater into be like, do I actually like what I want to do in the future? So please do that. Secondly is, once you finish your BPT and your MPT, I think a lot of people ask me this question, like, should I do MPT? And that's between like person to person and preferences. I prefer doing a BPT and work.
Yeah, that's
practically get your hands dirty, learn, leave, like, as in work around India. And if you have any time to go outside of India for any sort of contract, please do so. I think also in high school, in college, I think everyone's expectation is when working with teams, like, they want to get paid. And we have to kind of be honest with ourselves, like, work and with, like, just freely.
And provide value, right?
And I worked without pay for I don't know how many years in, like, the early stages of my career, and that's what got to me where I am right now. I'm able to handle pressure. I'm able to understand people way better. I'm able to just be, you know, let's be like, this is it and this is what's going to happen. And then now I'm naturally getting everyone involved, because it's better to work as a team than just being, just being very, very individualistic. Like, this is what it has to be. And if there's any last thing is, like, this is everything that the mistakes that I've made, is even if you have even a little form of ego of things, right? Like that ego, like, mujhe yahi aata hai, don't worry, this person doesn't know anything.
I think that's less ego and more fucking insecurity.
Like
it's insecurity.
Yeah, actions. I understand it's a rat race here. There's so much competition here. I get it, which I respect, because I'm part of the rat race too, right? But at the same time, just being like, just throwing that ego to the side and be like, you know what, whatever everyone's around me is going to do good and justice to that person in front of you, and just think good for everyone. I think there's a lot of, which another thing I'm not used to, is that little bit of talk that's going on from every angle sometimes, and that's all a little bit negative talk, which I'm not used to, because I come from a very like, hi, how are you kind of environment, right? Where everything is like butterflies and everything. So I think just neglecting that and making sure we encourage our fellow physios and athletic trainers and even any therapist that want to get better and better, and being like, you know what, I'll help you out, instead of just cutting the road and be like, hey, let me help you out for this.
Help you out? I sense your Canadian accent there.
Okay.
I love that. But I think what you broadly said was very, very, very amazing. And this is, it's crazy, but every person I talk to, and this is why this is named the Granimal mindset, because the mindset of people who are getting good at anything is the same. So I brought in Akash Sangwan, who's one of my best friends. He's my brother, right? He said the same thing. I said one advice you would give. He said, stop worrying about nonsense and just play. Even if you have to play for free, play. Because that is what is going to teach you, right? Stop putting things like, how much will they pay me? They were not paying me enough. It was shocking to him. It is shocking to me as well. Man, play, prove your worth. You will create opportunities for yourself. You will learn, you will grow, right? Exactly. I think all of the things you mentioned were around that tangent. कि यार सीखो, सीखने की इच्छा बहुत ज़्यादा होनी चाहिए. Going back to Rancho from 3 Idiots, success जग मार के आएगी. सीखो, सीखने की चाह रखो, right? And that's how you've grown, right? Like, you probably went and got whatever random opportunities came your way, learned through that, learned a lot of new skills, learned people management, learned getting out of your comfort zone, became comfortable with that. Now nothing is out of your comfort zone, which is an amazing skill to have. And then beyond that, you meet people, you create opportunities for yourself, right? I agree. So, like, from that standpoint, like, how do you think you do something special in terms of networking? Like, what do you think helps you connect with people and create opportunities in that sense?
Networking, yes. Like, as in, I think my biggest thing that I'm very happy that I started doing is just getting everyone involved. And the more you keep doing that, the more, like, a lot of SNC coaches and trainers, some of them have an ASCA degree or some of them just don't have any sort of degree as well, but they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes for them to just have like a pat on the back from a physio or an athletic trainer and be like, you're doing an amazing job,
Yeah.
that would go a long ways.
Yep.
And I think they're very, very like, like a lot of trainers are misled. And I've worked with some phenomenal SNC that, ma'am, we won't just do like heavy lifting. We will follow the instructions according to you.
Yeah.
So networking is one thing. And second thing is just giving people opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Giving the ortho opportunity, like setting your ego aside and being like, okay, what, let me hear from you.
Yeah.
And and I'm happy to say that if I feel like sometimes with me, not like very, very rare, but like sometimes an athlete's not getting better or the athlete is getting better very slowly, then I will refer them on to another physio that has maybe modalities that they're more comfortable with. It is what it is. I personally don't have modalities. I have my hands and exercise. That's all I have. But there's some things that, especially when you go a little bit higher into the age group, right? People are more comfortable with some sort of
100%.
modalities. And that is icing on the cake. It does work, but I strongly don't believe in it, but it does work for some. So I'm happy to say that, if I'm not the best person, I will refer you on. And I think that's a huge thing to actually have that in you and admit. Be like, agar mujhse nahi ho raha, what else can I do to help you out still? And caring for that person, the person will definitely feel that vibes also.
Yeah.
That this person is very genuine and actually caring.
Actually wants to help.
And I think that will go a long ways.
That is half the ball game right there,
100%.
is caring. Like, and we are in patient care, right? This is one of the things that I will constantly, every time I go and talk to my team, when they have like me when they bring me in to train train on this subject, I will always tell them two things. And I think you are an embodiment of both of those things. First thing is, never ever feel like the learning in this field can stop. It is never stopping.
Yeah.
That's why you chose this field, or that's why you want to be in this field, is because beyond the scope of clinic, beyond the scope of what is possible in a clinic, when you're training athletes, the scope is never ending. It's literally never ending.
I agree.
And the second thing you said was, being open to not just learning, but being open to different kinds of, I want to learn from this guy, and everybody should be bought into the process, right?
Exactly.
And that mindset, I think, is very, very important, where you don't feel like you know everything, right? And you go into every situation feeling like, I want to learn from the people around me,
Exactly.
right? So that's really, really important. And also you mentioned patient care. So I don't think anybody should be doing anything medical if they don't actually fucking are obsessed with wanting to provide the end outcome. That's one of the things I keep pressing on. I think my physical therapists are sick of me because I keep saying this, but I am a very proper stickler for this कि भाई जो इंसान जिस गोल के लिए आया है ना, our only job is to make sure we provide the fucking ecosystem for that person to get there.
Exactly.
It has to be the non-negotiable goal we set.
Yeah.
Right. So I think and you're a great embodiment of that, and all care people have to be embodiments of that. So last question, I think we'll wrap it up. I want to understand from you.
Yes.
You've had an eventful journey as an athletic trainer till now, and I know it's just scratching the surface. You'll have an eventful journey as a human being, more things you said looking forward to in terms of family and stuff. What is your genuine aspiration from both sides? Not just from, first from the career standpoint, where do you see Nav, the athletic trainer or the physical therapist or the strength and conditioning coach, getting to in terms of, this is the level I want to achieve, whether it's a position, whether it's a level of brilliance, and then in life, like what do you seek?
When you're looking at the job profile, I would love to be part of the Indian team. That's number one. And or any other national team, that'd be one. I have worked with a lot of Canadian teams, but then I took a break because of the move from Canada to India. Second thing is live golf. I really want to generally get into live golf or PGA.
Yeah.
So cricket and golf, just keeping my two main sports.
Yeah.
Until I feel like, now I should be more stationed. And have the flexibility to travel and work. I think that will not be out of my system. I love traveling. And luckily I have a lovely family that supports it too. That's one thing. Second thing is obviously the family, which I hope to be in the next couple, like, be a parent in the next couple years. And thirdly, give back. So I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I opened a underprivileged little orphanage called Hoops for India.
Oh.
2013, I think, in a pind called Banga Samundra area.
I know Banga.
Yeah, so that far. So my bua stay there, my real bua.
Navashehar side, right?
Navashehar side. So for all the village kids, I've set up a sporting little thing. And every year I'll donate as much as I can just to get sports in the village, because I understand they are playing football and cricket, but it's very like in unhygienic areas, it's not like you get a desk there. It's like you sit and there's a fatta and you write. So little things like that, and I feel like I really want to help them long term. I gotta put my hand up and be like, I haven't been helping as much or going to the village as much. Yeah. Because just with time and whatnot.
You have your plate full, right?
I really wish to go more consistently and making sure, being like, okay, what do you actually need?
Yeah.
So that I want to do all over, because it's not about, making money and being like, okay, let's make houses. Like, no, like, how can we actually give back? That's my biggest thing. Because again, if I want to make it, I can just be back home, which I don't generally want. I want to give back.
Yeah.
That thing also. And I think with One Academy, we're okay with that. Yeah. But maybe here and there, kind of like sponsor kids. So what Khelo India is doing, I think they're doing a phenomenal job. Yeah. But beach mein, like, if we already kind of helping as much as we can, like if someone who cannot afford, because we're a residential private badminton academy, but those that are genuinely need help. Yeah. Even in my practice, if I feel like a cricketer cannot afford it, or not just cricketer, any athlete who cannot afford it, then I'll look into the ways. And I do obviously give a rent to that place, and I'll speak to them and be like, this person cannot afford it. How can I help? Yeah. So it's easy, and they're very genuine. So I think that's the most I can do from my hands. Yeah. And I feel like I can do that from the future as well.
Love that. So is giving back something that came as a family value? Is that something that comes from your faith? Because, I mean, if we get into this discussion, this is another discussion, but I will not get into it. I'll keep it brief. But wo cheez hai, because see, you're the fifth person that, I'm having this discussion with, and all of them were successful at what they did. Yeah. And they were all big believers in God. I'm not. Right? Not that I don't believe in God, but I don't pray. I'm not religious in any way. Yeah. I don't thank God for anything. I just believe there is a balance that need to be maintained in life. I'm empathetic to everybody. I'm never going to hurt anybody. I do believe that is 100% a thing, right? That if you fucked up shit will come back to you. And that's not why I don't do fucked up shit. I just don't. I can't. I'm a very soft human being at the core. So why giving back for you?
I think there were times. So back home, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah. Giving back is expensive.
No. So I've been to a point that like I couldn't pay for my phone bill. Yeah. And I didn't want to ask my parents. And rent was that time $500, $600. Yeah. And like I didn't have money to.
You were living in the cheaper times in Canada.
Yes. Now it's like $1,000. Like, oh my God. So I've been to a point that, I didn't have food, which was really crazy, which my parents don't even know also. Yeah. You walk like 30 minutes and, you really, really struggle. And I had a scooter. I didn't have a car in the island. So, you have to go to teams. You have to meet them at the airport. You have to take 5 buses to get there. So I've done it all. And I've worked in fast food like no tomorrow at the age of 16, right? Studying, playing, McDonald's. Like that was my day. And I think that really has told me that, like, okay, like, I don't want everyone to go through what I go. We were okay, but obviously, the mortgage of the house and family, right? And I was, my second degree, so the kharcha there is not cheap also. So I tried to be like, okay, I'm going to do it myself. I'll do it myself, right? So I feel like that, after reflecting, I'm like, okay, I have enough. I'm happy. Now I can give back.
Yeah. That's common with all of the people I talk to.
And it's not like in 2013, I was like 10 years back, I was like 20 years old. I had nothing, right? Like savings was zero. But I knew that I can afford a basketball hoop, which was that time, which was like, it was very, very cheap. Yeah. Take a basketball, kitna hote? 100, 200 rupees. Like little things like that I can afford. Yeah. Every year, 2,000-3,000 rupees I can afford. Now I can afford a little bit more. Yeah. And they eventually is to give back. Like there's a lot of athletes from Jalandhar that I see. So maybe their bus fare, like something, something like that is more tangible. Like I don't want to give them money because I don't know where it will go.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or like, their kapade, their jackets and that kind of stuff, right? And so something like that I really want to look forward.
Yeah, you want to facilitate their journey,
100%.
right? So that makes a lot of sense, and it's an amazing thing. Like you said, you did it at 20.
Yeah.
Like it's very very mature of somebody to at 20 when they're learning how to sustain themselves to think about other people. So I think that's something that comes innate. And why I was saying this, because every successful person, I think, has to go through a lot of periods of humility where they find, like you did, कि यार धक्के खाने पड़ रहे हैं बसों में, पैसे भी नहीं है, खाने के पैसे भी नहीं है, and that period of humility you carry with you because it becomes a motivation for you, but at the same time you realize that there are people who are always going through the same grind you went to, and you empathize with them.
100%. And I can relate to that because I'm like, one day it's worth it at the end. So even right now, so one thing I've learned in my in-laws' house, they'll check they'll check कि नमक कम है दाल में समझ में, and मुझे कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा. I'm like, ठीक है, right? And they're like, you know what? And me, I can eat ठंडा खाना, गरम खाना, like whatever's there. And they're like, really? Like, and I'm like, I'm so used to being like whatever's there, like कुछ भी है.
Eat it, yeah.
है ना, कुछ भी थोड़ा भी कम भी, salt कम जो भी है. And I'm like, whatever's there is there, because I've learned how to not like taste.
Yeah.
I just focus on I'm full.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think this conversation can go on forever, but I think I've had a lot of time with you and a lot of quality time, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah. Last, if there was one thing, as a physical therapist, as a wellness, a sports medicine person, that if you could put out into the world and make sure that every person listening to you, मतलब अगर आपके पास एक लाउड स्पीकर होता जिससे आप पूरी दुनिया को कोई बात बता सकते हैं, what would that be? The one thing.
Be passionate about what you want to do in the future, and be extremely ziddi. Like, you'll have a lot of people around you being like, mat karo, but you need to zone in and be like, mujhe yahi karna hai. Yeah. There's going to be consequences, I agree. There's going to be a risk, I agree, but just go with the flow. It'll be all worth it in the end. I think my move from Canada to India, my parents were actually like, what are you doing? Yeah. And I was just like, yaar, mujhe dar to lag raha hai. But if you don't step out of your comfort zone, you're not going to go nowhere in life.
Never.
And it's not about you reaching the top, it's how to stay at the top. So keep yourself involved, keep yourself engaged, find things to improve on, get a mentor, admit things, throw your ego aside. You know, there's a lot of little things that I want to incorporate with my speech right now.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think
Thank you
valuable.
so very much.
Cheers.